Hello, everybody. I'm here with Mike. Mike, say hello.
Hello, how are you all doing?
Mike is also in the chat. We are going to talk about the Biden inauguration that happened today. Obviously, hello, Reamed. Oh, no, this is... Oh, sorry, I read the name wrong. This is Redeemer. Redeemer F. Hello. Thought that was Reamed. I'm a bit. I had a long day today. I think you too, Mike. Right?
Oh yeah,
Apparently,
long day.
all the days are long now. I don't understand what's going on.
Oh, it's Fadi. Hello, Fadi. Good to
Oh,
see you.
I had no idea. It's Fadi. That's awesome. Yeah. So we've got all the top listeners of the show. No, don't be sorry for the inconsistency. This is Twitch. Everybody has it. I mean, come on. I would have
Yeah.
Fabsh on Twitch if that wasn't somehow taken again. 25 months, man. You realize that you can never unsubscribe because then I don't know how long the channel's been running.
Yeah. I don't mind. I don't mind being your timekeeper. I do
Yeah.
know I'm paying for it, but it's a privilege,
You're
know.
now
So
the
that's
official timekeeper of the
very good.
Fox.Alpha Bravo channel.
Mm.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do in case people haven't been here before when we're doing this, the idea is we're doing the next Private Citizen episode, which I'm gonna put out right after this. But so basically, I'm just gonna talk with Mike, and we're just gonna record that part live, and I'm gonna do the hello and the other bits afterwards quickly. But we're just gonna do that piece on Twitch. It's Fadi's first live stream. Hey, live stream anniversary. What do you call that? Popping the live stream cherry.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna so that's the other bit. Also, I'm not gonna engage as much on Twitch, obviously, with Twitch chat as I usually do with streams, because this is a podcast and it doesn't work for the podcast listeners. But please, if you have any input, feel free to mention it. I'll keep an eye on that. And I think it worked pretty well last show. That we had some people saying they were worried that they were derailing the show, but I try and I will just not mention stuff. If it derails, it's my fault, not yours.
You assume full responsibility.
Yeah, well, that goes with that goes with the territory. I think you should do that as a content producer and as a journalist. So I'm gonna switch to the other view. You can see Mike's little window there and my recording. So I'll start recording. Okay. And you have to say something so I can see if that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to work.
I am ready. Yes.
Okay, cool. This looks like it's actually gonna work and record a podcast. So shall we get right into it? Because basically then, hey, Green Turtle, welcome. You're not late. You're just in time. If we get right into it, it's like the hashtag save it for the show, right? So we don't get any other stuff. So let's do that. Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm good.
How are
you,
things
Fab?
in Ireland?
Yeah, Ireland still level 5. We're still keeping within the 5-kilometer bubble, So
We have a 15-kilometer bubble now. That's new. It's like a new, but it's not really being
luxury.
enforced, I think.
No. The interesting thing here is that in my new job, I'm actually performing an essential service.
Oh,
so
you're
I'm
an
allowed
essential worker now.
But I after the sort of first elation of the fact that I'm allowed to leave the 5-kilometer zone, I'm like, there's a lot of other people who are essential workers
of course.
apparently.
Like pretty much everybody, plumbers, bricklayers.
It was short-lived that I felt very special, but yeah, I am staying at home though, because Ireland has been crazy with the numbers over the last 10 days or so.
No,
after New Year's, it just exploded. Like it was mad. We had one of the best rates in Europe before Christmas, and then we smashed the worst rate in Europe after
I
Christmas.
hate that whole thing. It's like the fucking World Cup. It's
exactly.
comparing numbers. I feel like it's all meaningless. So the 15-kilometer radius in Germany is based on like this incident thing, right?
Yeah.
But nobody knows which one, because there's ones for the city, there's one for federal states, there's one for counties, there's one for the country, and nobody basically knows what's going on, and they change the rules all the time. So I think people are just generally trying to comply, and then the rest is just played by ear.
It's nearly sort of Monty Python-esque now, isn't it?
Oh, it is fully Monty Python-esque. The German government has told us yesterday has decreed that if you go shopping now, you need a surgical mask or an FFP2 mask, which is basically, I think, an N95 mask. That's like the European standard. Which is hilarious because, I mean, it's debatable if there's scientific evidence that masks help. There's certainly papers on that. I see it a bit skeptical because I think their methods are, well, it's hard to measure, right? It's really hard to measure.
Yeah.
But
has always been.
Yeah, sorry.
That if you're gonna do the mask thing, it's all or nothing. Like I think if everybody wears masks all the time and they're, like you can reduce the amount of breath going around, but I think that's it. Like it's not foolproof or anything in any way, but it just reduces the risk a little bit.
Well, it probably helps some way. It's just we don't know how much. That's really hard to quantify, especially because there are so many different situations in normal life. But what I was going for was basically there's absolutely, and I mean zero evidence, and actually as far as I can tell, they haven't done any studies on like comparing masks. I mean, there is evidence, and there's comparing like fibers and how like aerosols travel through them, but not like in practical things. I think pretty much everything I've seen when they were testing, they were giving out like surgical masks to people. But they haven't done a comparison, like how does that stack up to, like, let's say a neck gaiter, right? I just think it's getting ridiculous now. Like now they're even telling you what kind of mask you like. I mean, it's hilarious because half the people don't cover their nose with it, right? And obviously, the whatever the order doesn't specify how you have to wear the mask.
No, it's just Look,
it's hilarious.
We're on a stretch now where we'll endure more of this hilarity in inverted commas, and hopefully with a vaccine program, and we can start getting back to some kind of more fluid lifestyle, right? Let me call it.
I'm gonna call this now. So it's gonna get better in spring.
Yes.
And it's gonna be really good in summer.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna get really worse next October. And it's gonna be bad next Christmas. And then it's gonna be getting better next summer. Well, I don't know. I'm no epidemiologist, but I can read curves, right? And that's what any curve of any respiratory disease of any kind has ever looked like. So I'm guessing that's what's going to happen. But, we don't know. We'll see. Anyway, we are obviously recording this live on Twitch as I do this now. And Astral C chimes in from, I guess, Israel and says nobody knows anything also in Israel, which just sounds about right.
Yeah, and we have Indie Gamiacs there saying, "Oh, it's Mike." And
it's Mike. It's the one and only Mike.
Yeah. I'm pestering your airwaves again.
No, I mean, we did the show because like last week you were live in chat and you were saying we should next week on Wednesday is the Biden inauguration. I was like, is that? Wow, I had no idea. And so we thought we're going to talk about this.
That felt like a long time ago actually, but maybe it's just because I've been counting down the days. Like,
I think it's because life is weird. I don't know how is it for you, but I feel like a lot of people are saying this, and I think people who are not used to like being at home all the time and having home office, working from home and all this stuff, are having timekeeping issues. Like, I don't have that because I've been doing home office before it was cool. Like, and I'm a geek, so I'm totally accustomed to just staying at home all day and just looking at computer screens for 18 hours a day. So, but yeah, I think you're not the only one.
And I would be not too dissimilar to yourself. Obviously, in my previous job, I would have traveled quite a bit, and that I had a different lifestyle with that. But now I have to say, like, even though I enjoy sort of home comforts, and I would enjoy being on my devices and blah blah blah, sort of pottering, and I'm fairly content with that in life as such, But I as anybody else right now, I can feel the pressure of stuff that I really miss, which is going to gigs.
Oh yeah, gigs
You know,
that is horrible.
that
They didn't have Wacken last year. Well, they had it online, but that doesn't really count.
no,
I mean,
it's not the same, is it? And even somebody like me who's fairly comfortable being in a house for quite a while, as long as you have your home comforts and the things that interest you, that's beginning to thin out a little bit for me as well. I've never done this in my life. I've actively contemplated just going for a walk, just to leave the house, right? And
I've read the other
I'm
day
changing.
I read the other day that that's the new hobby.
Yeah,
Just going out of the house for no reason whatsoever.
yeah, and that would have been alien to me, going like, why the fuck would I do that, to just wander about aimlessly? There's stuff to do, there's things to read, right? There's more interesting things. But now I'm like, actually, a walk sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's the
it's
new normal. I'm trying to
yeah,
fight it, but it's hard. It is
yeah,
hard.
exactly.
Let's start about so let's talk about the Biden inauguration a bit later. I want to first off address some stuff from last show. So you had some comments which we're gonna go into, but first I want obviously last show I talked about first show this in this year I talked about the Capitol riots, the insurrection, and then what happened with social media companies who banned Trump, and a lot of people. Twitter started it. And I came across this amazing story in the Washington Post. This was quoted everywhere. And I mean everywhere. Everywhere
Right.
I've seen. So they are saying that there was a dramatical reduction in misinformation on the internet after Trump was banned. And this is from a startup, a PR company basically called Signal Labs. They look at social media and the press, basically TV, radio, and then analyze trends, right? And
Yep.
and sell that to you. But I thought this was hilarious because basically what they're saying is they banned Trump off Twitter, and because of that, there are obviously less tweets about what crazy ideas Trump had, which were like the post goes on. It's like they were widely retweeted. Anything he said was widely retweeted, giving him a huge platform. As this, any account like Lady Gaga, who I don't, the Iron Sheik, right, says, "Oh, the Wednesday, fuck the Wednesday," and that gets retweeted like 10,000 times. And that's how Twitter works, guys.
Yeah, and it's really like you if you could get a sound effect where it's just like "Beer, Captain Obvious, beer,
Yeah.
please come to the bridge," it's like, what did you think? Obviously, like, I could have figured that out, and I'm not a very clever social media analyst. It's like, yes, of course, there's less retweeting of Trump since you removed him from the platform.
Yeah, so I don't blame their company because they're a PR company and they did a great job placing that story, and they're known all over the world. Like, I kind of fault the guys who wrote the story because haven't you thought this through? Because I think this is also dangerous misinformation, because if they actually think that this whole, like, people are not discussing the fact that okay, Trump placed the idea into people's minds that the election, we talked about this several times, he thinks it was rigged, right? There was election fraud going on. And if you now think, because it's not being retweeted on Twitter, and obviously not in the press, because the press saw, as I said last episode, they source all their stories from Twitter, so it's not in the press, obviously, because they can't quote Trump anymore. If you think that means people are not talking about this, right, and sharing this, then I don't know where you're living, but this has just moved to Telegram and WhatsApp and closed Facebook groups, which this company can't look into because it's not open source intelligence, or in other terms, public information on the internet.
I mean, I do know that there are companies out there that sort of work in a nearly sort of forensic intelligence kind of way, where they do have what they call what is it, human informants or something like that, who sort of report into
Yeah, I
that
mean,
kind
you
of
can
social
get
media
into
stuff.
those groups,
Yeah,
right?
but but
That's
it, but that's another level of work, right? As you say, that it places you sort of in between this kind of just the big satellite dish, and you're just sort of sucking in the open and available stuff. Then it becomes probably a little bit more expensive, a little bit more exclusive, the product that you're selling there, which is sort of quasi intelligence work,
yeah, and you
Yeah.
can't see. So my point is also you can't see what like air quotes normal people do, right?
Mm,
This stuff is being talked about in WhatsApp. Like even
yeah.
if you like just from a work colleague to a work colleague, from a husband to a wife, like among friends. I mean, I talk with my friends about things like political things. Nobody, it's
Mm,
end to end encrypted. Like there won't even
yeah.
there's no ability for them to get into that. Which is why that's the next thing. They always go like, we need backdoors in this, right? And we need to be able to decrypt this, which is the next
Yeah, yeah,
the
no,
next step.
I read your essay on the crypto wars. Very interesting.
Yeah,
Let's not
I'm
get
just
into that.
no. Let's not get into that. I'm just
Yeah, but
dismayed
there's an
that.
episode which is very good, folks. If you want to listen to the private citizen about the crypto wars, have a history lesson by
Yeah,
Fab. Then
and we're
yeah,
gonna. I mean, I'm gonna do more on that because that's just something that it keeps coming up.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
and yeah, it's it's just I'm just dismayed at the press. Not, I mean,
But look, the whole Trump thing, right? That the man was like a fire hose before he got shut down, and that is creating rings in the water that will go on for a long time. And just because you can't see the fire hose spraying at this point in time doesn't mean that stuff is not out there, right? I mean, it's so naive of these people to even put that to paper, going, misinformation has dropped. It's just, yeah,
yeah. I mean,
it
it's the problem with that is also we're gonna get into that later. I think what they are not realizing is that I mean they also banned a lot of just like people from Twitter, right? Not famous accounts, but people were they're saying associated with QAnon and stuff like that. And my big, actually, one of the things I want to talk to you about is my big fear of the future is that these people, and I seriously don't want to get into a discussion whether what they're saying has merit, right? Because I generally think it doesn't. Like QAnon is a bunch of crap. Like it's that is hilarious bullshit. Like
it is that is top tier crackpot
maybe it's
stuff.
comedy.
Yeah.
Like you could see it as some kind of like reality comedy, but people actually believe that. I mean, we don't even have to talk about how hilarious dumb that is, right?
Well, I mean, if you see the guy in the shaman thing and all that,
Yeah.
in another age,
The
like in the
fuck?
60s or 70s, he would have called himself a performance artist, right?
Yeah,
I
maybe he
mean,
is. I don't know. Who
but
knows?
then as we'll get to in the next segment, this is that he's also then, in my opinion, an insurrectionist. But
Probably, yeah. I
yeah,
completely agree with you on that.
yeah,
But like the idea is just like if you so let's not get into an argument if what they're saying has merit because it doesn't, and I'm on your side. But just
yes,
completely disregarding that, you're marginalizing these people and you're pushing them underground, right? You're pushing them to encrypted communicate. They're not gonna go away, right? In Germany, I mean, I've talked about this. In Germany, by saying that everybody, when they passed this COVID law, right? And the mainstream press was saying, basically saying everybody who demonstrated this in a democratic way in front of the Reichstag was like basically a Nazi sympathizer, right? You are pushing people that are actually not Nazis and not neo-Nazis and probably not even, on the political right into that camp. And you're pushing them into the arms of parties like the AfD, and for no reason at all. Because I don't understand why people are doing this. Because you could just go and, take the ludicrous things these people are saying apart, right? On their own, it's easy to do because it is bullshit.
Yeah, and look, if we're in the spirit of sort of just agreeing on some points so we can sort of move on, then I've also had some weeks now to really think this over because obviously we've sort of been since we did our first American sort of segments and all that, we've had a long conversation about these things and especially that, not that you like Trump 1 inch, but you come from it of a principle of as we talked about in the very first one, which was that I know you're coming from the freedom point of view that you should have the ability to state your opinion, right? And having sort of listened to a lot of the arguments and I've seen how it was done, and then I will agree with you as well that Twitter and the other social media platforms that decided that this was the time, that was especially not the time to do it because it was so late, like far too late in the game to all of a sudden decide on a policy. And
I kind of think that's why they did it, because Trump would have retaliated if he was still had time.
Like, Trump was he was on his way out. His magazine of fusillades had been pretty much emptied, right? He threw everything at this to try and do something to extend his period in office or overthrow his own constitution or whatever it was, right? And in that sense, he was so weakened that then they could strike, and have mass popular approval of what they did. But the principle is violated at this point where you go like, well, it is wrong to do it like this because like, why now? Like,
I mean, if Angela Merkel agrees with Trump, right, you can already tell that something didn't go right here.
I think she would maybe take you up on that particular formulation, but she doesn't agree that he should be silenced in this way, right?
Well, yeah, she didn't agree with him on his crackpot theories. Yes, no, I didn't want to say that, but she basically said what Twitter did there was wrong.
Yeah, and I actually agree with that. And maybe a year ago or something like that, I might not have said that because I am just your average Joe, really, in this sense. I'm 42. I have kids. I have a regular job. There's nothing special about my life as such. I'm a regular Joe in the world. And a year ago, I would have gone like, I'm so tired of this orange buffoon. What he's doing on his platform. He's basically breaking down democracy in front of our eyes and yada yada yada. All these good things, right? And I would have clapped my little fat hands and went like, finally he's gone, yay. But obviously through our conversations, I can see it's maybe some of the bricks you don't want to remove from the foundation of democracy, really, even though you really, really want to, right? Because there's another stinker sitting on top of it.
Yeah, and also the problem really, right? If we're saying, okay, Trump is bad for democracy and bad for the country, the problem really is not that he's on Twitter. The problem is that he's the president of the United States, right? And you try to get rid of him, you try to impeach him, and that didn't work. And then you're like, basically, you're kicking him off Twitter, right? That is just like.
It's exactly the point, because the only people or the only institution that has power over the president is the Congress, right? They are the ones that can try him for whatever crime it is they think he has done, and then they can remove him. That is the way that the president is not omnipotent.
Well, right? Technically, the Senate tries him, but I know what you mean. The Congress is...
Well, the House of Representatives...
The House is like the oversight body.
They bring the charges, right? And the Senate trial him.
So Congress in itself is kind of like it's like the overseeing.
Exactly, body. But that's what I mean. He is overseen by his peers, and that's how it is, because he's obviously immune from prosecution otherwise, right? So that is the only institution that can bring charges against him and trial him. And in my opinion, and this is something that we talked about before in the other episodes, that they were not their task. They were not worthy of the task in the sense that if that was really what they wanted, that he was too dangerous to have in that position, he should have been removed. But obviously, that principle has gone as well, right? Everything is played down the party policy line rather than the principle line of what people in Congress privately thought they maybe wanted to do, but they were afraid to do. Or maybe they all agreed that he wasn't dangerous enough. We'll never really know because it was played down the party line, right?
I just think the burden that is set there is very high. I mean, I personally, I personally think, Mike, my opinion, I personally don't think he was actually that dangerous. If we go and we sit together and we start to, not completely agree, but figure out what points we're pretty close on. If I look at our discussions in the past, I would be very close and could even agree if we compromise on the point that you say, well, he's corrupt and he's done all he's done to like put money into his own pocket and further his brand. I don't completely agree with that, but I'm more with you on that than not, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So with that, I'm with you, but that's just like it's like really really hard to impeach a president for that, because to some degree they're all doing that. To be honest, I mean, you had presidents in the past who, I mean, Trump was a very egregious example, right? But I mean, to some extent, Reagan has done that. Nixon certainly did that.
Don't get me wrong. Like, there's plenty of examples, and like what America got up to, even in the period since the Vietnam War, with trying to overthrow South American nation states and their involvement in the Middle East.
And in that respect, I do. If I look back at Trump's presidency, and I think that foreign policy wise, maybe not for America, but for us in Europe, with all the complaining our politicians did about him, he was. I mean, for the people, it was probably the best president in a long time. I know this is a controversial opinion, but like
you really have to quantify this.
He didn't start any wars, right? He was actually trying to pull soldiers out of conflict zones, which is something I've been saying for 20 years that the Americans should do. I mean, we had German newspapers celebrating today that Trump is gone by saying, "Oh my God, he was actually thinking about moving American soldiers out of Germany," right? And I know this is a controversial opinion, but I don't like American soldiers in Germany. I don't like that they have nuclear bombs here. I don't think that is it. There might have been a time in history when there was need for that, but I don't think there is. I mean, what kind of a country are we? What kind of an institution is the European Union if we need American soldiers in Germany to basically protect the peace in Europe?
Yeah, I think conflating the European Union and NATO is maybe.
No, I think
they are of course. There's an alignment there, but I think we have to be careful.
I think you misunderstand me. Yeah. I think NATO basically has outlived its purpose. I mean, people are saying this alliance is falling apart. I mean, our politicians for 4 years have been attacking the sitting U.S. president. That is not like an alliance. I don't think. This is also a controversial opinion. People are like, "Oh my God, the EU is going to have an army." I think, yeah, if Europe is going to be a power and a bloc that needs to
assert itself.
Then yes, the European we can't leave this to NATO because NATO is not European. I mean, it is part European. You know what I mean, right? It's not the same thing.
You bring up a really good point, and I think, unfortunately, we got called out on it a bit by Trump before Europe had actually sort of realized that it was about time to maybe actually go. Yeah. Is it time to grow up? And if a perfect example is what happened with Crimea, for example, right? Which was, in Trump's defense, something that happened under Obama, right? With the little green men that came in and annexed Crimea, and obviously it was a Russian operation, and there the Americans, for whatever reason, decided to stay their hand a bit on that.
And Europe was powerless.
And Europe was powerless.
What did Merkel do to help them?
Call, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Yeah, completely. Yeah. That should have been a wake-up call. Like, what did Merkel do to help them?
Yeah.
Nothing, because we know that the Bundeswehr is not built for this kind of shit. And it is by constitutional decree. So we need to sort ourselves out. It is not the Cold War anymore. This is like 30 years since that is gone. We need to wake up to the power situation that actually exists over here.
But then, leaning into that, I would say that Trump was gleefully aware that there was a chink in the armor here because it suited his purposes, which I think are very well described. That, you know, he was very open about wanting to have a closer relationship to the Russian Federation, and knew that not pursuing a strong relationship with NATO and sort of stepping away from it would be one way to do that. And I've mentioned that before, that I wasn't happy about that at all some years ago when we started having this conversation, I think, where, you know, the impeachment was coming up and all of these things. And yes, now we can say, okay, well, the European Union hasn't been very good at just ripping off the Band-Aid and going, okay, this is clearly not going to happen for us, you know, so let's just stop complaining and realizing that this is the way America is going. And you can have an opinion on that, and I think I'm beginning to go, like, even with Biden coming in and a new administration, I'm not sure he's going to be in a hurry to really do something other than talk nice about it. But Biden has a lot of domestic issues that he needs to
I agree
to clean up, and it may not be more than a bit of nice and warm talk and you know, less criticism of how much money the U.S. is still spending, but that may be it, right?
Well, so the thing I would say that I detest about Trump in this situation is that I don't think the Biden administration is gonna be honest on this situation, but I don't think Trump was either, because while I think, you know, I in principle like his idea of pulling forces out of, you know, other countries, where he was dishonest about that is that the 60-70% of the US economy is based on this kind of thing, right? The famous military industrial complex does exist. Just look at how much money the US pours every year into defense, and you need to justify that somehow. They don't use that for domestic defense. They have their fucking aircraft carriers all around the world, right? They're cruising through the Gulf of what's that with the oil tankers? Forgot what that was.
Gulf of Aden, is it?
Yeah, down there. They're fucking everywhere. You know, somebody says something, let's send an aircraft carrier to remind them we're still there. And
well, look, I mean, there was stuff that happened. I know you say that, you know, they didn't start a new war under Trump, but, you know, there was definitely a shift in stance where, you know, he pulled out of the Iran sort of sanction deal.
Yeah.
And there was speculation that he would use this last period before leaving office to basically rustle up enough controversy so there would be some kind of excuse to start a small scale
I just
war
remember, I think I was wrong, because he did, you have a point there, he did bomb that guy, right?
Oh yeah, a year ago he completely assassinated one of the top-ranking Iranian generals.
Right before they shot down that aircraft because they were getting twitchy. So
and
so that was a very Obama move.
And he had a couple of people in his administration that would have dearly loved to have, gone in there gung ho, and I think chiefly it was Mike Pompeo, the foreign secretary, that, and he himself has dreams about becoming president one day. So
please not.
Yeah,
he's not that douchebag.
Yeah, he's a piece of work for sure. Did you see that he spent the last few weeks on Twitter just glorifying every single thing he had done in his time in government? It's just everything. But anyway, so like there was stuff going on where, and this is again I don't want to sound like a tinfoil hat person, but we have some people in the Trump orbit, let's say, Jared Kushner and his daughter Ivanka, that they're the sort of more sleek operators on talking to the movers and shakers out in the world, where Kushner probably got some concessions or something done with regards to like Israel, and how as far as I know, Israel would dearly love to have some kind of war with Iran and sort of.
Oh yeah, they've been working on that for decades.
Yeah, so we shouldn't discount that there was maybe not open warmongering, but definitely some kind of activities being pushed or agendas being pushed through.
Yeah, I mean, totally. One thing I actually I thought it was a stupid idea in the beginning, and I was saying this is ridiculous. And I was writing about this in my newsletter almost daily, that the whole trade war with China, I thought that was idiotic. But I think I changed my stance on that, because I think I was too. They were going on about Huawei all the time, right? And I think the what they said openly was just idiotic. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, Huawei spying, like they have spyware in the routers, right? Of course they has. So has Cisco. Like, which, do you think only the Chinese do this? Like, what the fuck? I mean, of course everybody's doing that, but I think the actual idea of, like, I much prefer having some trade wars to having some actual wars.
Actual wars, yeah. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, actually, China, good point here by Fadi. Most of what Trump did was saber rattling, which I completely agree. Which can be a valid foreign policy. I mean, the British. I mean, I think that's where it comes from, right? The British have made an art form of this during the Empire, right? You would just sail your fleet off the shore there a little bit and show everybody how big your ships are, and then you don't have to have an actual war.
No, and there was definitely policy changes there that came about from some kind of influence through Trump's orbit, and whether or not he sort of personally profited from that, or if it was his family or something like that profited, again, we're sort of crossing into conspiracy theory land, but definitely when you look into just the amount of information out there, that there was some work going on to make sure that business interests and policy making kind of converged in many cases.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I don't think I've ever done. Like, my point is just that. So my outlook on the future is that I think the same thing, just with different people and in different places, is going to go on with Biden, and probably also not with him. Maybe just like, I don't really like the guy.
But you don't? I didn't get the impression at all that you didn't like him.
The point is that it's mostly about his past. It's not like I don't really dislike him either. Like with Trump, it was really weird because I wasn't agreeing with what everybody was saying about him, but I didn't dislike him personally, really. Right? I thought he was just like kind of a clown and a buffoon, basically a WWE character, I mean, he was in the WWE, and in his performance, you can't really tell him apart from his character, because I think he is his character.
Yeah, but I think that's a little bit quaint at this point. I can see how you would think that maybe a couple of years
Well,
ago when
no, I yeah.
but and you're entitled to your opinion there. But I'm just going. Uh, there's being a cartoon character and sort of doing that with a wink and going like, okay, I'm a bit of a rogue, but you know, in the deepest of hearts, I'll do the right thing if it really comes down to it. I don't think Trump has that capacity in him. Like I sincerely, he employs the cartoon character when he needs to. He employs other ways of being when you don't maybe see him in the public eye, right? Because there's many accounts now of people who have been in his employment or been working closely with him, and essentially what you're dealing with and what you dealt with Trump is a mafioso style autocrat who will do whatever it takes to bludgeon you into submission and to follow his lead. Like I would love to kind of go, oh, he was a bit of a cartoon character.
No, I'm not saying that at all. Like I think you're mistaking a little bit what I'm saying there, because I'm also the guy you might remember who is disagreeing on the press when they said he's really dumb, right? I'm always I was the guy who for years said he wasn't dumb, which then implies that if he's doing something bad, he really knows what he's doing. And I think he is. If the things that we maybe disagree on or we don't really know are right, actually are right. That means that he did that on purpose, and that he's really smart at doing that, which makes him
there's
all the more
definitely a
evil.
showman. There's a showman intelligence there for absolute sure that he employs. And I think his ultimate downfall was that he probably wore his what you would call his sort of emotional state a little bit too openly on his sleeve when I don't think he was maybe used to having to just like every single moment of his time had to be carefully choreographed, right? Because otherwise we would jump on him. And when I say we, I mean the collective sort of.
Well, I think his ultimate downfall was picking a fight with the press. He underestimated how much power the press has.
Yeah, but on the other hand, he was keenly aware of having to use the press as well. Like.
Yeah, but like
there was just parts of the press he didn't like, and then he pushed them out and just.
Well, he just kept insulting them like from the first minute, and it was a emotion. It was like a personal animosity, right? I don't know one journalist actually. I'm thinking. Well, maybe one or two who don't really have an opinion, but like. There's dozens of journalists I know who have a deep dislike. I would even characterize it as a hatred for Trump. And I see the same in writing from US journalists. You can see it. They really don't like him, and they're biased against him, which is fine. That is like, for me, the issue is that every journalist is basically like that, and there's no counter voices. But okay, he just picked the fight with all of them, and he lost. That's what I think. He underestimated how much power the traditional media still has today.
But I would also say, yes, he definitely picked a fight with the press, but there was a reason why he got picked on, which I think let's take the last sort of events of his presidency as an example of that. If you want to move into the Capitol,
yeah, I think we're in the middle of that, but yes.
Yeah. So essentially, like, yes, every president and every political figure will you know, they will end up in hot water from time to time, right? It's nearly impossible being a perfect politician. I mean, JFK and, you know, even sort of saintly people like him that, you know, people now when they think back, you know, that there's this kind of glow around JFK. I mean, he was not perfect either. Like, it was just that.
No, the more about I read about him, the more I think I was wrong about him. He was a bit of a warmonger as well.
But see, this is the thing, like that we're kind of going, yeah, we're not sure we really want to trust any politician.
I'm sure I didn't like any U.S. any U.S. president who was in office in my lifetime. I didn't like any of them. I think, yeah.
So in your life, yeah. So that was.
So it's Bush
Reagan.
Senior.
Well, yeah.
For me, it's Bush Senior, Clinton, Obama. No, Bush Junior, Obama, Trump.
When was Reagan in office? He must have been in office when you were alive, no? But you were.
I was born in '83, so I think that was Bush Senior. I'm gonna Google this. 1983, U.S. president.
Yeah.
At least I can't remember. No, it was Reagan. Yeah, Reagan was president till '89. Well, I can't remember him. So, you know, the first things I can remember is from my time in primary school when, you know, the Second Gulf War was going on, and it was like Bush Senior, right?
Exactly.
Although, you know, Reagan, what I read about him, I wouldn't say I like him either. Fucking
so it's slim pickings on the president front anyway. Yeah.
Green Turtle was quicker there than me Googling it, but I didn't see it in Twitch tab.
So, but the thing is, like, you know, today I made a conscious effort to sit down and watch the inauguration, right? Because I did that with Obama, and I did it with Trump, and I've now done it with Biden, because I know it's just a bit of pageantry anyway, and ceremonial and so on. But there's something about the first words that this person utters. You know, it sets a tone, and it sets the direction for their presidency. You know, and I remember watching Trump. He came down the steps. He looked smug as fuck. Like he was the cat that got the cream, right? He was so delighted with himself. You can just see it the way he walked down the steps. And then he opens up with America First, that he was going to be the law and order president against this American carnage with, you know, drugs in the street and, you know, America being taken advantage of by the world and all that. And I was just sitting there going like, does this guy live on a different planet? What is he talking about, right? And just from, like, it was like a dark cloud that just came in.
See, I was thinking that's exactly what an American president would say.
No, but it was also just his mimicry, right? You know, if you watch it back, like if you really care for it, yeah, I know it's over and it's done and he's out. But the way, like, you know, the way he was saying America first, you know, this kind of like vicious, nearly.
But let me stop you there for a second, right? Let's be honest. That is what America is all about. That is what Americans are about. I don't care what they tell you. That's what they're about. That's what they always were about. They think they're the best. They're the best democracy in the world. They're the best economic powerhouse in the world. They make the best stuff. They make the best cars. They have the best sports. That is what America is.
Yeah. And out of a nation of, what are they now, 460 million people or something like that, I think there's probably some of them that don't fit that description, right? So we have to be, yes, I can already see now we've offended.
Yes, we've offended somebody. When I say that, let me make this clear. When I say that is the stereotype, right? Let me give you a counterexample. Germans are very tidy, and we build these absolutely meticulous cars, right? And I've been, for my career as a podcaster, I've been fighting against the stereotypes, right? For years I've said I will never buy a German car. Now because they're shit. Now I own a German car, and it's a fucking rust bucket. right? It was built in 2002 and it doesn't have like interior sealant against rust. And it's falling apart from the inside with rust. Like in 1995, every cheap fucking Renault you bought had this interior sealing. Any cheap car maker made that, but the fucking VW doesn't. Like, the stereotypes. It's stereotypes. They don't often apply. You Irish aren't all drunk. Drunk idiots, or the Danish. I mean, what's with the Danish? What's that stereotype?
I think. Well, funnily enough, I think when you ask outside of Denmark, in somewhere like the US, I think the Danes are mostly known for being the first country to legalize porn.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
I like Denmark now.
Yeah.
I like Denmark. I mostly know you for having a language that is utterly unpronounceable.
We do have a very bad language to learn. It's really like, if you want to have some kind of masochistic project, then just go and try and learn Danish. Yeah.
What did somebody say in Discord the other day? It's like, who creates a language where vowels are optional?
Yeah. I mean, I think I usually tell the story that we have this famous passage in a history book, or sort of an account. And it was this. It was a traveler from sort of North Africa, a scholar at the time. So one of the. At the time when actually the sort of North African Muslim, Saracen, they were extremely
advanced,
like
right?
advanced compared to the rest of the world, right? So he was traveling the world, sort of, picking up on cultural differences and languages and stuff like that. And then he came up to the Nordics and Denmark, and he was like, my God. The people here, they talk like they have a potato at the back of their throat. or what was it? He said it sounds like they're burping all the time.
Fadi says, was it Ibn Fadlan?
Yeah, it sounds familiar. Yeah, he was famous anyway because he really it was extraordinary what he did for the time that he lived in, right? But the Danes, it was like, we sounded like we were burping all the time. That was his assessment of us.
Has survived the times well.
Yeah,
still very applicable. Yeah, but what I was saying is, so I always saw Trump from his very inauguration. I mean, even before that, it's kind of this will hurt to Americans, but I have to say this, it's kind of like an American stereotype. Everything he said, make America great again. America is America first. I have the biggest. I have the best. My aircraft carrier is the largest. That is what that's what for me the stereotype of Americans is. So I wasn't surprised, is my point.
Yeah. No, but look, I think my point was that he set the tone for his presidency.
Yeah.
And he definitely stated quite clearly that he didn't give two flying beeps about America's work in the world, as much as he would sort of make sure that all the trade deals and being taken advantage of would be reversed, and that it was time to focus on the country itself and not be so outward looking. And that's a perfectly valid political manifesto to have, and as the people in the chat are saying now, I think that was probably one of the factors of getting him elected, that let's stop spending money overseas on stuff that doesn't matter, so that was his kind of promise there. But it was just the way it was delivered was
corny.
It was quite menacing and corny, I think, in a way that you hadn't seen with like previous presidents, where it's more sort of they give like a hopeful indication of what their policy manifesto is. But of course, that's just my personal impression of watching.
I mean, I don't think he was that special in that. I mean, Bush Jr. didn't do this in his inauguration, right? Because that was before September 11th, if I understand correctly, remember correctly. But he was very menacing afterwards, right? He was basically saying, we're going to come down there, wherever you are, in your caves, and we're going to kick your ass. And we're going to bomb you and bomb you and bomb you again.
And bomb you some more. But as you say, that's what you would kind of expect from a traditional American president. But then let's go back to my point there. About,
and he was also, sorry, again, just very quickly. He was also comic about it because he couldn't fucking say the word nuclear. Remember his nuclear? He couldn't say any word. He was like a fucking moron when he was talking. Well, that was before Trump. We thought he was the worst.
Yeah. But look, like Bush Jr. was a puppet. Like, I don't think there was a lot of individual thought there that went into what was doing. Like, he had a strong circle around him, especially Dick Cheney. I think was the
fucking Dick Cheney.
Was the person pulling his strings. But I mean, that's already now. That's a long time ago. All the stuff that we've moved on from that. I remember at the time. What was the guy's name again?
Who was the fucking general where they were just lying about the weapons of mass destruction?
That's a whole
Colin fucking Powell.
We could probably, if you want to do like another look back at history on disastrous, lying in political. Obviously they got Tony Blair along on the war wagon, because they convinced him that there was a clear and present danger, right? And he still maintains that to this day, like
Well, he kind of has to. He doesn't want to lose face.
That he acted within his conscience. I think he has. He has admitted that obviously, there wasn't at all what he was told there about the weapons of mass destruction and all that. But that if he was presented with the same information again, he would still make the same decision, that kind of thing, right? So.
What cracks me up about it is there's a song by David Rovics which taught me this. The fucking operation was nicknamed Operation Iraqi Liberation.
Yeah.
OIL. The fucking operation was called Oil.
Yeah.
I mean, how on the nose can you get? Just fuck them. My God.
It's, that stuff is it is very sad because obviously that has repercussions today and it will
destabilized a quarter of the world almost.
Yeah. But I think just because Trump didn't start any wars, he was clearly saying there's stuff that I want to do and sort of signal the destabilizing policy manifesto in the sense that America would pull in on itself again. And this is what we've gone over with NATO and so on. But I just think, like, he set the scene for that. Then his first press secretary of many came out, and the way that he
was
basically launched into Spicer, yeah.
Oh, that guy was a character with his fucking bubble gum.
Because again, that's the first meeting he has where he then goes like, the inauguration crowds were like the biggest ever, and and all this kind. And you can you not remember where you just went like, what is going on here? Like, it's really, this is not what we're used to, and it just kept going and kept going and kept going after that.
Yeah, I mean, so Fadi says this is exactly why vilifying Trump seems so hypocritical. He might be bad, but for me, he wasn't actually the worst. And especially with Fadi's background, that is understandable.
Yeah,
I mean, exactly from down there where Bush and Obama and they bombed everything. And that's the same thing for me. That's why I kind of got to grips at some point that he's being vilified this much because he just basically pissed all over the press, and it's a natural reaction.
But he pissed all over the press.
No, the press.
He started hollowing out the American federal institutions and government checks and balances in order.
Yeah, you say that, but then
no, I say that.
If we're going history lesson, I mean, what did Bush Jr. do? I mean, he held on everything, and the whole fucking war on terror created all these new institutions, and
No, but Trump has his war on terror. It was just war on immigration, right? So with his wall and everything, that was his
but like
horse to ride. As we say in
who
Denmark.
created ICE? That was Bush. Who didn't close it down? That was Obama, right? Who put the first fucking fences down there? That was Obama's administration.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Trump started it, but he definitely made a lot of political meal out of it.
Well, yes. So basically, what he did. So my problem with this is just the following: it is okay, and I think it's okay for the press to criticize Trump on doing that, because I do not agree with him on that either. I don't think this whole border bullshit is good. It's all anti-immigration stance is idiotic. But the problem is, if you just put it on the person, you're not understanding the underlying. What Trump did is he took advantage of a significant amount of the American population that thinks that immigration is bad and they should close the border and all of that. And if you just put it on Trump and say this is all Trump and it Trump's institutions, then you do not understand the underlying, you know what I mean, the popular opinion that is there. That is the problem. That's the problem. Trump is gone, and whatever Biden does, we're going to have the problem that in 4 years, there might be another Republican presidential candidate who gets elected on this whole societal opinion that is there. They have to address that thing. They have to address why people are thinking that. And especially, I mean, if you look into it, it's mind blowing. It's like if you look into the as they like to call it, the Hispanic population that lives in those border states, a significant amount of these people are actually against immigration. I've seen the same thing in Germany. I've told the story years ago. I talked to some, I don't know, like Turkish immigrant. There were probably second generation Turkish immigrants running a doner kebab store, right? And I come in there and they're ranting with this other guy about like immigration. And they're like, they're stealing our jobs. And they were talking about, 2016 when I think the Syrian immigrants or whatever, when the immigration thing went through the EU. And I'm like, guys, you do realize that like 10, 15 years ago or like 20 years ago, people said this about you guys. Like, what? We have to address why that feeling is there. Like, why do people who were immigrants a generation ago are now anti-immigrant? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's the same in the UK. There's quite a few prominent conservative ministers now who have, second or third generation sort of immigrant background, and they're hardcore anti-immigration. And you're just like. I just don't understand, but obviously it's a human character thing, right? That's
I think it's fear. Like it's the same thing. I've been noticing ever since this COVID thing started that there's a lot of things that I've never understood in society that I can start explaining by irrational fear. Like there's this irrational fear that take our jobs away. What jobs? You're not working as a cleaning lady. You're a fucking insurance clerk, right? They're not going to be insurance clerks. Like, what the? Are you still there? I think I lost Mike. I might have lost Mike. Let me see what happened there. This is a live show after all. You still technically connected.
I'm here again. Yeah,
there you are. You okay?
There of some kind, strangely.
Yeah, some.
Can you hear me?
A glitch. Yeah. It's like it's like Cyberpunk. Wait, I'm gonna put a marker here, and I'm gonna fix that in post. Anyway, are you there? Okay, I think it's still glitching. Wait, I'm just gonna call him back. I'm just switching to the other camera, so I'm not like revealing any. I don't know if there's any like information here, but I'm trying to be OPSEC here. I think the Danish intelligence service has just decided we can't continue. Somebody has decided we can't continue this conversation at this point. I'm guessing it. I'm guessing it's not my internet connection. It says Mike's not online, although it says he's active now. Let me just think. Maybe we can switch to Discord. Since I'm streaming and you can presumably still see this, I don't think that is the problem. Yeah, I defended Trump too much. Somebody decided, oh, he's calling me back. Hi, Mike. I think I defended Trump too much or something.
Yeah. It wasn't a rage quit. Sorry, guys. Just very bad internet here.
Well, that is. Hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. It's all good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna fix this in post. I don't think. What was I just saying? I was just saying something. Anyway, what was I saying there?
Yeah, I think we were talking about Trump's different sort of policy making and how that it's synonymous with a system that he just exploited more than.
Just give me a second. Maybe, I just realized I can just stop this recording and go back and listen to what I said, and then I can make it seamless. This is some podcasting magic here. You're a fucking
maybe it's time to get a Guinness.
Insurance clerk, right? They're not going to be insurance clerks. So what I said. Sorry, what were you saying?
I'm saying it's maybe time to get a Guinness.
Yeah, if you have a Guinness.
I can feel it's. I have reinstated my little fridge down here in the other part of the.
I'm doing dry January. This is physically hurting me.
I can do dry January or I can do homeschooling. I can't do both.
Oh, I completely understand. So let me just. So the last thing I said is, why are these people afraid that you're going to steal their jobs? Because you're a fucking insurance clerk. They're not going to steal your job. Now you can just react to that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then obviously you see this and it does happen. And, I think
Fadi actually says in some cases it's because people who migrated through normal means, which sometimes difficult, would be pissed off if someone just bypasses this, i.e. illegal immigration. Yeah, I think that's definitely a factor. Are you drinking something? What are you drinking?
I am drinking the Guinness.
Oh.
Definitely. Because
I'm on dry January. This is not good. This is not good. I resent now. No, you enjoy your. This is completely by choice. So just to explain, people were like, Katie was having this bet with a friend, and bet they were like, we're not going to eat sweets in January, and I wanted to support her, and because just not eating sweets is not really hard for me. I thought I'll pick something that's hard for me, which is not drinking, and I've been doing well so far. I can tell you, I've not lost any weight. The whole thing with losing weight when you're not drinking is, in my personal experience, complete bullshit. I've actually been gaining weight, although I think that's because I'm not getting fatter. I'm just doing muscle training. Yeah. I think that's muscles.
Might be muscle related. Yeah. No, you're just being a good husband, Fab. So
moral support. Yeah. Well, I'm the house man, right? That's what I do. I bake bread, and I cook, and moral support.
I mean, you're a steal. If you were on the market, you would be a steal,
Well, I don't even know what being on the market feels anymore. It's been almost it's 19 years in March.
Well done, man. Well done. But anyway, yeah. So I think we have to talk a little bit about, because obviously Trump had his shot. He had his 4 years. I think what he got done was some tax relief, and obviously changing quite a bit on foreign policy.
He did kick.
Doing...
He did kick China's economy in the balls before this whole pandemic thing started.
Yeah, so he got his wish there, not being taken advantage of by China and so on, and sort of changed that stance. And what
Well,
else
that's
can we
about
think
it.
of, really? Like, yeah.
And then a lot of controversy.
A lot of controversy. And obviously we've gone over that in previous episodes, so we're not going to rehash his whole presidency, but I do think we need to talk a bit about these riots or the insurrection at the Capitol, because
I completely agree with you. That's an insurrection, by the way, just off the bat.
Yeah, because and obviously this was my feedback to you, that you were having a right old laugh at the people calling it a coup, and I do understand where you're coming from on that, and technically speaking, yes, it wasn't like an outside force trying to overthrow the government by striking against it in sort of a military or infrastructure way. That's not what happened in that sense, but we did have American citizens breaking into a restricted area where there was a constitutional act going on, required by law to certify the election results, which they sought to delay or nullify, right?
Yep, I mean, as Biden called it today, this sacred site. I don't know why it's sacred, but I understand what he means by that. I don't think using religious terminology is the best way to, but hollowed halls maybe would have been better.
Yeah, as we say in Denmark, the wing beat of history has passed over that site.
How do you say that in Danish?
Historiens vingesus.
I mean, it is a great language when you hear it. It's just horrible when you try to speak it. But it's if you can speak it, if you were born with it, it's amazing.
Yep, I was born into it, man.
I mean, if I was in the 80s and I would have done like something like Star Trek Next Generation, right? And I was looking for like an alien language, right? I wouldn't have like made up Klingon or something. I was just gotten some Danes. Like, you just speak Danish. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be dubbed in Denmark anyway. Then they just put some other language over that.
What are you talking about? We never dub stuff in Denmark. We have subtitles.
Well, then that would be a problem.
That's why we're so good at English.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good point. Yeah. No, the Dutch are much the same. Yeah. It helps you. Yeah. It does.
So anyway, the insurrection, which I think is fair to say, right? And this was another thing and I think you had a point about the people who were in it, that you did not necessarily want them to be called that insurrectionists. Am I right? Or
no, I think insurrectionist is a very apt term. I think I said that. Yeah. So my point was just that it's more than a revolution. I don't understand why people insisted on calling it a coup, right? Because the classic examples, like I don't know, the Nazis seizing power, right? They were voted into office, so it was much the same thing. That wasn't a coup.
Yeah, I mean, it was more sort of a slow boiling thing that they brought to a conclusion where they.
Well, I've actually looked this up. Yeah. Historians actually call it a revolution, because basically that's what it is. The difference between what you would think of traditionally as a revolution, the people rising up, the positive example in the French Revolution, right? Positive, depending on, there were lots of people beheaded afterwards, but generally it created like the first modern democracy in that way and all of that. But anyway, let's not call it the first, but that it's generally a positive connotation. But but with the Nazis' revolution, they basically just pretended the people wanted that. But
they created a scenario where the how should we put it, that the German folk was under threat, right? That was like they hammed it up on all
Well, it was under threat. There was huge economic troubles, but I know what you mean. Yes, they completely exaggerated the situation and made the people think they wanted this, or lots of people didn't, but because they controlled mass media, they made it look to people like everybody else was in agreement.
Yeah.
And then they killed everybody who was dissenting very publicly. So that helps.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and at that point, when the scales have tipped so much that they can do it in the open, right? Then it's already gone, isn't it? That's
right.
Obviously, you.
So
anyway,
no, go on.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah. So obviously, as you're saying that, when you look at a insurrection versus a revolution, which, as you say, if you really want to be very sort of technical about it, it is kind of the same thing, right? There's a group that want to change the...
it's more the connotation, insurrections you thought of as something negative.
Yeah. So essentially here, like, we had a group of people that did not believe in the election result and wanted to nullify it. And in that sense, they were against the laws of the land that said that, this is a legal result.
Completely.
And it has to be certified, and they're getting their just rewards now with being, rounded up and charged. So it becomes a criminal act. And then, as you say, in a revolution where a people is suppressed, they're being mistreated, and, out of sheer misery, they just want something else than living a life of abject something. Then they rise up against their oppressive government and they overthrow it. And obviously the ones that charged into the capital there, they had some kind of belief that that's what was happening, right? That they were being cheated and suppressed.
Yeah.
While the people like us looking at it, going like, what are they doing? So yes, it's just. You just have to go, like, at a certain point, you will have to choose a side here, right? Because the choice is, do you think that America under Trump, or in the American society in general, not necessarily even under him, was a fair and just society, or tolerable with most of the basic needs that you would want to have as a private free citizen, right?
Yeah. A private citizen,
Yeah, if you still believe that was possible, even with Trump as a president, you wouldn't be going into the Capitol like that.
Exactly.
And that's where we were with that. And
so
then,
my
course,
point, let me just interject there. So my point is, I completely agree with you on that. I was making fun of them to a degree, because I don't believe Trump wanted this, and I don't believe he wanted to instigate this. This is something you obviously you completely disagree, which we can talk about in a second. Yeah. But what I wanted to say is, if he did, right? If you are right and your theory is correct, then this was the most inept, dumbest attempt at a revolution and insurrection, call it a coup, I've ever seen, right? So my general standard for people who think they know what they're doing and didn't, when executing something like this, is Hitler's first putsch, the beer hall putsch, where Hitler was very, very, very close to being shot. I think that the person next to him actually was shot. Yeah. And of course, it isn't
he went to jail for that, right?
He went to jail. Okay, of course is a laughing matter, because he basically went to VIP jail and then wrote his book. Mein Kampf. And of course, everything that went after that is a tragedy, whatever. But how they execute that putsch, if you like historical fiction, read an account of that. I can recommend Ian Kershaw's Hitler biography. There's a hilarious, I think it's hilarious. It's not really hilarious, but it's like the ineptitude of these people and what they were doing, that is already bad. And, it tells you a lesson that you can't. This is why a lot of Germans underestimated the Nazis, because they saw this and they thought these guys are clowns. And that's a lesson in history, that you can't go, these guys are clowns. You know, that's maybe a mistake people made. Maybe I made. You could argue with Trump, where like he's such a buffoon. Well, I did not really. I think some people did. I think generally thought he was dangerous and more in the intelligent way. But that that's a lesson in history. But this thing was a fucking joke. I mean, you could see they were storming the fucking Capitol and didn't know what to do. Like they obviously didn't have a plan. They were surprised they got in.
No,
I think.
No, right. Okay. So my take on it, right? The thing with Trump is that when you actually studied him for a while, he telegraphed what was going to happen. Because like 6 or 8 months before the presidential election, he already said, I can't tell you if I'm gonna concede or not if I lose, right?
Yeah.
Because he was starting the narrative that no matter what happened, either he would contest the result, or he would go, yes, I won, but it was a close call because the system is rigged against me, right? And I contested because it's rigged. It's like he started the whole rigged narrative way before the election, right? And started that up. And then we come closer, he continues with that, goes around on his rallies and sort of, he puts everything into his re-election because, and again, we've talked about this at length I think there's significant legal jeopardy out there for both him and his family and quite a few of his associates, both on taxes, on corruption, on now this seditious conspiracy, right? That's another thing that's been added to the portfolio against him. Foreign policy, whistleblower, quid pro quo, all of those things can come smashing down around him, right? Or people around him now that he is a private citizen and not a president anymore. Then, of course, we had the election. He never conceded that he never accepted that he lost or didn't say it publicly anyway. He went round with his 60 plus or how many lawsuits to try and overturn state results. He did his call to the Pennsylvania authorities there and said that could they not get him, what was it, 11,882 or whatever it was, votes to overturn the result there, right? He called the Republican governor or whatever he was there and to try and bully him into overturning the result there. And it was clear as day that they were going to try, and when I say they, I mean Trump and his inner circle, every single available tactic in the book for them to do something about it. And this is what's come out with the Capitol riots that I don't know if you've seen the clips that I sent to you. There's several of the sort of militia group and agitator group or whatever you want to call them that were basically saying that the objective was to either delay, and you had some of the lawmakers in Congress, the Republican sort of spirit in there going that, they thought maybe they should delay the certification or the inauguration because of COVID, or, they were sort of talking up that and it was all like delaying tactics. Trump just wanted more time if he could get it to just try and do something so he could hold on to power. And that's why I think that when you look into it, yes, all the demonstrations were not sort of publicly arranged by Trump or his official associates, but why is it that 80% of the people who put their names down as organizers of these demonstrations were previous Trump camp employees, right?
Well, I see it actually the complete other way around. I see it as taken that the demonstrations were organized by his camp. I think that's so. Can I tell you my take? So I think
Yeah,
what you,
I mean, I know I'm just wobbling on here, but
no.
there's so much to go through it, and I know you don't want to go into it in super detail, but um, to me it's just very clear that you wanted to build up a pressure of this amount of people there being essentially whipped into a state of let's go for it. Let's go at the Capitol and let's get our 1776 or whatever they called it, revolutionary happening here. And yes, you had a lot of normal people there, as you say, but you certainly also had groups that were organized to try and do something. And I agree with you, they weren't organized on like high military level with super coordination and all that. But you definitely had different groups going in, trying to make something happen, trying to catch certain personalities, trying to breach into specific areas and see if they could get somebody and do a hostage situation. Or like worst case scenario is that somebody would have been killed as a personality in there, but luckily, or whatever you want to call it, that didn't happen.
of course it didn't happen because the people weren't armed. And the security people were armed, and they shot at people, and they did shoot people. So my
But
thing
you don't
is,
need to be armed with like firearms to kill somebody, Fab.
in America, if the other side has firearms, yes, you do. Do you think the Viking guy could have killed somebody with a spear with the guys with the Glocks
I don't
there?
care. I don't care about the QAnon guy. Like he was sort of a poster boy thing. I don't know if you watched some of the videos from
Yeah,
people
I
basically
watched a
going.
lot of C-SPAN raw footage.
No, there's actually from the people themselves who went in their stuff on the net of like their videos, and there's quite clearly some people in there who are hunting for.
Mike, I agree
Like
with you on all the details.
yeah.
I'm on a completely different level. I believe that these people believed that they were doing this because they were idiots. What I'm saying is this thing had no chance of actually succeeding. How would they have succeeded? I mean, you can see it didn't delay anything. The certification, well, it happened like what, a few hours later?
Well, I mean, in the worst case scenario, right? And I don't think they would have actually made it to wiping out all the political actors that they would have had to, and it would have caused chaos for a while. But as you say, there would have been some kind of political machinery that would have ensured that somebody else would have been able to do it at a later stage, right? But I do think somebody in a certain level of the Trump orbit thought that they could do something to just delay things and get some more lawsuits in to contest the election result again.
I understand what you're saying now. I understand it. I have a totally different view. I'm just gonna give you what I think happened here. I think Trump's camp, his idea was to cause a public pressure, but not like, storming the Capitol, not trying to kill anybody, not that kind of thing. I think what he wanted is to exert pressure on Congress to do one of the things that can, theoretically be done when you, I don't know, but there's all these different things when you count the electoral votes, where you have people who are, to basically jam the process, right? Or stop this certification.
Basically, there's a phone call that's been recorded on a voicemail, and again, as you say, if more intelligent and more insidious people had been involved, it might actually have been different, right? But this is Rudy Giuliani trying to call a senator on the floor, or a representative going, can you just object a little bit longer and just try and stretch it a little bit longer, so we can get some more lawsuits in. That is basically what he says on the. I think
that's basically what they tried to do, because they thought the lawsuits had merit, and I think there might have been some people, I won't disagree with you, that they were trying to, stir something up. And maybe some people in the Trump camp thought that this would work. But if you look at it, like, I think, okay, I'm gonna tell you what I think. I think you're a little bit too much beholden to what the press thinks about this. And I think they're drumming up again fear and panic about a situation that is not. This is like COVID, about a situation that is not as bad on the face of it. But oh my God, American democracy is gonna end. I'm not saying that what happened wasn't bad. I'm just saying the actual danger that was there was nearly as high as they make it out to be. There were armed security guards. They shot some people. Yes, I don't understand how they reacted either. I don't understand why they let the people in. I don't understand how some guy can like stretch out and on Pelosi's desk, have like an AP photographer photograph him, and then just walk off, right? In the highest security and building of America, next to like the Pentagon, maybe. With all this police around, they have their own police force. They have the Capitol Police Force. You tell me they weren't prepared. There's lots of weird and fishy stuff that's there. But I don't think it was as much of a danger as people are making it out to be.
I know in other times we've had the same kind of situation where you're kind of not wanting to put too much emphasis on it because on the face of it it's a riot and it's stupid and criminal and so on, and then on we go, right? But I think my point is exactly as you said there. This is completely unprecedented in American history.
No, the British fucking burned everything in Washington down. They burnt the Capitol down.
Modern American history, excuse me.
Well,
sorry.
it's American history.
For a long time, if anybody had a sniff of something like this happening in any other context, Black Lives Matters, war protests, whatever, there would have been an absolute army there throwing people back.
Right. I completely agree. And the question is, why didn't that happen? That's the question we need to ask.
That's the institutional hollowing out.
I don't think so. The people responsible for this are the Capitol Police. Right? Yeah, we're talking about Washington, D.C., which is controlled by a Democratic mayor.
Stop.
They're not federal. The Capitol Police is especially not.
Fab.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry.
This is great. We know Fab again. Right. Yes, it's a Democratic mayor, but there are Capitol Police chiefs involved in deciding things, right? And there are reports out there, and I think I listed some of them for you, where there were concerns like days before where they were going, okay, it seems like this is going to escalate up to a certain level that we haven't prepared for up until now. And there is intelligence going that this can be a bit more hot than we actually thought. So we would like the National Guard to be there. But no, that was refused, right?
But like, so as far as I can...
So what I mean with the institutional hollowing out is that there has been an undermining of these things, right? And it played into the hands of the people that are or were sort of in power and in government, that if you pull certain levers and lean on your institutions and so on, if you don't want a ham-fisted, heavy response to something, then you can make that happen as well. Or in the case of Black Lives Matter, for example, you can put up a veritable army there against a demonstration, right? And ring it with iron, which they did. And the difference is striking. Right?
Okay, before I go into that, I have to interrupt you for a short bit. I think you have a microphone cable rubbing against your clothes or something?
Yeah, I do apologize, everyone, because I'm in a different setup here, and
you don't need to apologize. I just only noticed this now. It's been been going on for an hour, and I was just too distracted. Yes, but
now when you're channeling ranty fab, then I start moving as well.
Right? Yes, which nobody can fault you for. I just want to say, you said Black Lives Matter, right? And I'm just looking this up because I had to remind myself. But remember Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone? When that happened, I thought to myself, how can that happen in the capital? And I understand why they said the National Guard shouldn't come in, because as far as I understand, and I'm not a specialist on these kind of things, but as far as I understand, it is specifically, like Washington D.C. is specifically set up to be outside of federal control, right? And the National Guard is a federal institution. I think you have a point, because if the actual people that are in control in Washington D.C. actually ask for it, if they go to the federal government and ask them, please help us out, I don't think there is that much of a reason not to do it. But I think there is inherently, without horroring out from Trump, there's an institutional reason why this wasn't done. But I'm just baffled how this could have happened, and I don't think there is an easy excuse like, well, Trump hollowed out this whole thing and he kind of somehow planned this, and I mean that might have been an aspect of it, but I want that investigated. Right?
Oh, and it is being definitely, and I send you a lot of links there that from different perspectives show that it was not the response you would have expected, and I've seen the videos. Like, it's a hopelessly undermanned group of police people who are there, where at a certain point there's just enough of the insurrectionists, as I will call them, to just push past them. And yes, they could have tried to fight them, but they would have lost. Like, the numbers were just against them, right?
I personally,
and then they
yeah, I think they didn't, at that point, they didn't want to, if you start shooting, they didn't want to have the visuals of shooting people on the steps of the Capitol, like even with rubber bullets or whatever.
They move into the Capitol, they rummage around, and they go like, yeah, let's burn this place down, and oh, we did this is a revolution, and they're rah going at it. And then they sort of get into the smaller stages, and they want to get into the chambers. They want to get at the the representatives. And I mean, I didn't know that I actually was going to watch this, because I was just but basically I watched the video where that woman gets shot, right?
Yep, I've seen that too.
And I swear, like, that just hit me, because obviously as a human being you don't want to see that, but it was just such a, from one moment to the next, they're breaching into the speaker's area, I think it is, and there is a guy with a gun protecting that area, right? And bang, she just tries to go through that window, and she gets shot. And I will never forget this. You can see her face, and she just doesn't understand why she got shot.
Well, yeah, I think that's generally. I mean, in part of my job, I've seen quite a lot of these videos, and that is, I think that's what people look like when they get shot.
Yeah, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And like the state that the people are in there, that's what I meant earlier with, they are quite clearly thinking that they are doing a revolution, and you can call it as idiotic and not planned and all, but that was the state they were in.
But like, don't you understand my view as well? I mean, if that video happened in Germany, right, and they were storming the Reichstag, that would have been shocking, because generally you don't see. Like, you wouldn't expect that, even if you're storming the Reichstag. You wouldn't expect you'd probably get shot, but you wouldn't expect it to, because that is Germany, right? Like, if I'd asked you a week before this, if somebody in the US storms the Capitol, like, would you expect them to get shot by the security people? And I would have said yes. I don't understand what state these people are in that they think they can just do that. And then obviously not only she was surprised, the people around her are like completely surprised. I think there's one guy who thinks that there's like I think they say active shooter or something. You know, I think they think there's somebody, obviously not from the security people there, who's shooting.
No, what I remember from it was that, you know, they just go like, she got shot, you know, and you are at that point, you're going like, you know, you are basically in the inner sanctum of, as you say, one of the most like well-known and you suppose heavily guarded structures in the US. It was so surreal, actually, some of the stuff that was going on. And I think this links into it, and you can talk a lot about how, you know, they believed they were doing a revolution. They were righteous in their mind, right? And also there's this kind of thing where they probably do also believe that they're protected in some way because they are who they are, right? They're going there on the president's orders. You know,
Don't know what they're thinking.
No, but you know, afterwards there was quite a few of these interviews where, like, you know, the president told me to do it.
Yeah, right? Yeah, of course. I mean, but the more I'm reading about this, I'm now reading like these are like ex-military people, right? There's like ex-Marines. They're arrested.
Yeah.
And I look at these people like you have a military background. I mean, wouldn't you expect to get shot? I mean, there's this like people in tactical gear who are like they're wearing camouflage inside a building and like combat webbing, but obviously they don't have any armor plates in there. It's like these people who think that they're like people who watch Hollywood movies and think you wear a vest like that and it's like bulletproof. It's just like it's so weird.
It was a bit of a cosplay revolution, wasn't it?
It's like fucking Kakistani, like fucking 4chan people. Yeah. But yes, the chat does agree with you. The explanation Mode 7 says is they felt empowered by the Orange Man fab.
Now there's one other thing I want to say to you, and this is specifically because there was a link to a political article made by Fiona Hill, and you really, really didn't like that one.
Well, I didn't like her. What was it, like the self coup?
The self coup one, right?
God.
So I just want to tell you that Fiona Hill is a British history PhD who has been a senior fellow at the Brookings Institutions about
of course it's the Brookings Institution. Oh my God. Yeah, okay.
And European affairs, and she's also sat on the National Security Council.
Okay, she should know that a self-coup is not a thing. I had to look this up because I was like, I've never heard this.
I know you
where's this from?
I know you looked it up, but what I want to say to you with it is that she has studied especially Eastern European nation states and the way they've been going about things, since the fall of the Soviet Union and so on. So she does know a few things about authoritarianism, I think the word is, and how autocracy sort of gets fomented and beaten into shape, right?
But you are misunderstanding me. I'm not disagreeing with the fact that was what was happening. I'm specifically agreeing with the term, and I'm saying if that is your position and you're a historian, there are terms to use that are better in this situation. If you want to convince your audience, if you want to make more of a splash, the only thing you would say it's a self-coup, and that's why this article is written, because a lot of other people said it was a coup, and then they were made fun of, including by historians who said this is clearly not a coup, and then they were like indignant and need to defend that they used that term. I mean, call it the Machtergreifung, for fuck's sake.
Okay, so
that's much better.
I'm just pushing your buttons here a bit because I think sometimes you like to make sure that everything is black and white on the definitions, and I'm a definition person myself, right? So I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't that you're throwing away this, because Fiona Hill was extremely important for a lot of the depositions around the impeachment trial, because she had actually worked in the federal government and had been trying to advise the federal government on Russia relations and stuff like that. And so she is quite knowledgeable about what has gone on also on the inside. So that's why
but
I find
also
this
obviously extremely biased against Trump.
Well, I mean, she got pushed out, right? Because nobody would listen to her when she was giving her advice. So you could say that that will color her article, because obviously she might just be like really huffy that nobody wanted to use her expertise. I happen to think that her points are really, really good, but then that's me. And I think she got pushed out because she was right. And it was a hot potato to start, going like, okay, we have this really knowledgeable person in our advisory circles, and we keep ignoring her, so we should probably get rid of her here before she does more damage, right? Anyway.
Well, any history professor or or politics professor. I mean, I don't have a degree. Who am I to say this? But I had several, and several of them have said the same thing, and I respect the people who say this, and they all say, if you're a historian, if you're a political scientist, you will not get into politics because you know how horrible it is. And I've never understood historians or political scientists who do this. Prime example of somebody who I really don't like is Noam Chomsky. I've always explained this with the fact that he is actually not a political scientist, really, but a linguist, really. But so he doesn't know better. But I don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't like, especially if you understand Russia. It's.
But anyway, I'm just saying, if you're still okay with it, I think we should put her article in there as a.
Now I have to put it in the show notes, Mike. I was saying I'm not.
I do.
Fuck this.
I do want it in.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now, and I have to find it again.
I do want it in there because I think I want our esteemed listeners to also
how the show works.
Look away from the self-coup title and look at the checklist that she provides on how to achieve a sort of autocracy takeover of a democratic state, which she has studied in detail.
I understand, but if she studied in detail, she knows how it looks like when it has a chance to succeed and is organized, and this wasn't it. She needs to know that.
But it wasn't for want of trying, Fab, because as well that
of course, yes. But
he was replacing people in the Pentagon in November and December, right? And people were going like, why is he doing this now, right?
There were tons of German revolutions that wasn't for want of trying, that all failed, and they were a lot better organized. Yes, of course. There's always trying. I'm just saying, if your stance is like this is all organized by Trump and it's like this government takeover, and this is the same thinking of the people who say Trump's really dumb and he can't do anything. Like, I'm thinking if Trump had organized this, it would have probably worked. That's my stance on it. I think he knew that this wasn't gonna work.
No, I think he genuinely has put a lot of effort into trying and find some way that he could get out of this, because I think you're correct that he was quite convinced that he would carry into his second term. And I think in the second term, we would have seen a lot of interesting stuff happening that would have cemented his grip on power. And, as I said before, everything that's happened can be traced back to him saying something to that effect. And he has stated before that, he would try to look at if he couldn't get a third term, right?
Yes, but people said all that. He's not gonna step down. They said this for years. It hasn't happened. He stepped down. He's gone.
Yeah, he stepped down because he wasn't able to derail the election
Yeah,
result.
exactly.
He dearly, dearly wanted to do it, and he just couldn't.
He
And the
couldn't, and I
American
think he knew
democracy
he couldn't.
survives by a hair spread, you know. And this is what we talked about as well, that a lot of the grassroots stuff, and then this is the stuff that I hailed in the last episode, that, I think the Democrats themselves didn't really believe that they could carry Georgia and get the 2 Senate seats that they needed to get Senate majority. And then they just, by the skin of their teeth, they actually got it because their grassroots movement just put pedal to the metal and went for it there.
Maybe,
And
or maybe there was shady shit going on. I mean, yes, Trump has weird theories, but I mean, I don't understand. What I don't understand generally is why is it okay if the Democrats, after the 2016 election, say this was all hacked, it was all manipulated, there's all these Twitter bots, it's all the social media stuff, right? And then we have an election in 2020 and all of that is gone. No, the election result is ironclad. There was none of that stuff going on. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, that position doesn't make any sense unless you're partisan.
But there was, they reformed some of their election protocols in that period, right? In many of the states. So.
But they're still using the same fucking voting machines. I don't actually know about Georgia. I have to look into
that. They used less of them, I think, didn't they? Than in the 2016 election. I think there was less voting machine voting,
probably.
And more
probably
ballot voting and more. And see, this was the thing, right? It was clear that there would be more voting by ballot. So, and again, we've talked about this. There was a clear strategy from Trump to try and hamstring voting by ballots and trying to get them invalidated. Or, he even changed the Postmaster General, right, and just put in some toady that wasn't qualified to run a federal postal agency, but just somebody that could throw a spanner in the works.
I mean, yes, but that is as I've looked a bit into that. Wow, who was that lady we talked about in the previous show who in Georgia registered Stacey all these Abrams. People? Yeah, Stacey Abrams. There's tons of I don't know. What I think looks from my perspective like credible evidence that she registered tons of people, or somebody registered tons of people that are not alive, and all this kind of crap. I'm not saying that changed the election result. I'm just saying I don't believe this is black and white. I don't believe Trump cheated here. I don't believe there was cheating going on when Trump was elected and here there wasn't. I don't believe that. I think there probably was, and they couldn't prove it in court, so it doesn't matter.
Do you know why Stacey Abrams went round and canvassed for people to get registered again on the electoral roll?
Yeah, I know, we talked about this, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't cheating going on.
But the cheating started with the Republican administration at the time that was trying to gerrymander people out.
That is not an argument against that there was cheating in the other direction going on later. All I'm saying is
let's see your work on this, Fab. I want to see that work. Where is that? What is the credible reporting that you have seen on that? Because I have sure as hell not seen something on the other way.
Okay. I'll dig it up. Maybe I'll do an episode on that if I can. It's just, the point is, you can't be so naive to think that, like, either there's no voter fraud and no election fraud going on, or there is. If there is not, then there isn't in any direction, and if there is, then it is in both directions. You can't believe that only the Republicans are doing this.
Well, the stuff I've read and looked into, it's primarily Republican lawmakers in individual states that are doing the gerrymandering.
I'm not talking about gerrymandering. I'm talking about vote canvassing, and not the legal kind, right? Getting people who will not fill out their ballot, getting the ballot and filling it out for them. Registering people who are dead, who've moved to another state, all this kind of crap. Like, if you read all the coverage in the New York Times and the Washington Post, nobody disagrees that is going on. They're all saying,
Well,
happened this election, happened
okay,
every election,
it,
and it just didn't
the
happen at a level where it changed the result, which I tend to agree
yeah,
with.
because the status is, when all was said and done, in Pennsylvania, I think that was the one I read last year. So there was 3 cases of verified voter fraud. So 3 votes that were found to have been done in the wrong way. 2 of them were Republicans taking their son's vote or something like that, or taking a ballot they shouldn't have had and voting with, and the other one was Democrat. So 3 votes out of I don't know how many million.
And you believe that?
Were
you believe that in a normal election only 3 people do voter fraud?
No, but I'm saying they were the ones that were cases that were in court or whatever, right?
Right.
But then if you add that up with a certain factor of magnitude or whatever, you can do that all day long. But I think you're right that sort of active ballot shifting and things like that will probably not shift the balance of power unless we are in Florida where it was, what was it, 600 votes or something like that. I can't remember now, but with in 2000 between Gore and Bush, right? So there it could have. Oh, am I gone again?
No, you're there. I'm listening. We are listening.
So yes, you can want to dig into it more, and
I don't want to, because I am the one, Mike. I am the one telling you I don't think it changed the result. Right?
Okay.
I'm just saying, as a journalist and as a critical human being, I do not believe that if there's cheating going on, it's only the Republican doing this. They're not better. These are 2 political parties that, where I'm sitting here in Europe, for all intents and purposes, are basically the same. They're basically the same. There's maybe 10% of political difference between those.
Well, it's my personal opinion, which you of course allow me to have, and then you can call me naive and so on. But if we take the example of Pennsylvania, yeah, okay, if it's 2-1, that's two of I can see you're shouting at me again on the screen here. If it's 2-1 in whatever ratio that you want, then it is primarily the Republicans, but okay, that can be unfair.
But why? How would you explain that? Are there like inherently worse people?
I don't know if they are inherently worse people, but I do think that there are some parts of the political party that has a base that is predominantly wanting to conserve and keep the predominantly, let's say, ethnic and social background that they're used to, that they keep their power. And what you see now, the narrative that they base their concerns about is that there is cultural and ethnographic changes in many of the states, right? And there's no other way to beat around the bush than there is an element of, them going like, it is a more diverse voting cohort that's beginning to be seen in my state, nearly whatever state it is, where it's not a high degree of just, let's say, white people, right? I mean, it's a touchy subject, but
No, it's not I mean, that is exactly what. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. No, but I'm just saying that I think there's an element here of cultural and racial injustice that apply because the traditionally conservative Republicans can see the writing on the wall that they're not necessarily going to keep getting the amount of votes that they've always got because the demographics are changing, and they're in some places they're doing their damnedest to try and stem the tide in their opinion, right?
I think we are completely different here because we just read different sources. I don't see that. I see I see reporting where the Democrats nearly lost this election because a lot of black people were not going to vote for Joe Biden, and the Democrats have for decades taken black votes as granted, and had basically a party policy where they basically said we don't need to make any concessions to black people because they just vote for us anyway. And that's been the way since, I don't know when, that probably the 70s or something. And they saw the writing on the wall. This is why Kamala Harris is vice president. They saw that they need to make concessions. That's why there were discussions about reparations in the run-up to the election. Mm-hmm. But my problem with this is
so Fadi's comment there. No,
if they're not black, they didn't vote for Biden.
Yeah,
Biden literally said on a radio show, "If you don't vote for me, you're not black." He said that on Charlemagne the God or whatever that funny guy is. On a primetime radio show, he said that.
That's some statement, yeah. I didn't hear that one.
So my problem is I don't want to get bogged into this because my point is I don't want, and I said this before we're going to do the show, I don't want to get bogged into, you say this about the Republicans, I say this about the Democrats. My general thesis here is that one party is not better than the other. They both have problems. Where you see the Republicans as basically, want to keep like I don't know what racist kind of baseline. I'm oversimplifying here, right? To like keep in power. I see the Democrats as a party generally controlled by warmongers. There are the same people that think it's okay to have the ex-CIA guy to become a political correspondent on CNN and then go back to the intelligence community or whatever. Like, I see them like that. But I can understand where you're coming from, and my takeaway is that these parties are both essentially the same, and that's why I don't believe the Republicans are cheating more in elections than the Democrats. I think all politicians, if the system allows them to do this, will cheat. All politicians, if the system allows them to do that, will be corrupt to some certain degree. I just don't believe in the good of humans. I think all humans are inherently flawed, and I think if you give them enough money, they sell their ideals down the river. And I think that is not different in the Democratic Party than it is in the Republican Party.
Yeah, and I think on that point we're not that far apart. I have come to in this sort of middle part of my life with the experience that does come from that is that politicians seem to behave quite consistently and that is that they will take advantage of what's ahead of or in front of them rather than having a moral compass that will make them make decisions that are counterproductive, but they want to stick to their principles, right? I mean, there's very few of those that survive in the political landscape, I think, because they stick to their convictions on all things, right? There's always a bit of malleability or whatever you call it, flexibility in a politician.
I think the best you can hope for is that they have a certain goal and that they pursue that goal, right? So that's probably from when I was studying history, and I'm a proponent of Bismarck, who did whatever he could to do and did like dirty deals and all this kind of shit. He had a goal, German unification, and he made that happen, right? And if you're a green politician in today's world, and your goal is, I don't know, carbon neutrality or whatever your goal would be, yes, there will be corruption, there will be dirty deals, there will be backroom deals, there will be all this kind of stuff. But the best thing you can hope at the end is that original goal that you have, that you carry that through. And I think that's what being a politician is.
Yeah. And let us be, frank on that we do understand again that, it's probably an utopia to have a whole, let's say, parliament of morally righteous politicians that are, able to just make decisions all the time without wavering from at least a bit of whatever it is their convictions, because again, human nature, and sometimes you do have to compromise in the short term in order to achieve your long-term goals, and I agree with that.
I think sometimes it's maybe not corruption, right? Sometimes it's just
it's the art of getting
the possible.
some things through. Yeah, the art of the possible, and I think you have to allow for that for sure. But when you see somebody who's a weather vane who just wants power, it doesn't matter really what aims they achieve in the long run, as long as they just stay in power with the ruling coalition or whatever. That's the sad part, isn't it? I mean, that's what makes me sad anyway.
That makes you sad, but for me is it if let's talk Trump, right? If his ultimate goal is just pushing his brand, right? And if he pursues that, and if he does that, and I think, at least he hasn't done any more damage, right? If you contrast that with, I don't know, if your ultimate goal is to, help the military industrial complex, and you're otherwise a nice person, then I think that is worse. I'm not saying that that's what Biden is. I just actually couldn't think of an example.
No, but I get the point. Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I used to be on your side. Actually, we have a very good discussion in chat where people are saying, I agree with Mike or I agree with Fab, and then Fadi said, but I agree with Fab, but I'm happy that Mike takes the other position. And I mean, that's why you're here. That means the show is working. Right?
It's working.
That's what I want. I mean, that's why we're having this discussion. And I personally, I used to be complete, like, why it infuriates me so much sometimes, your position is, I used to think like that, right? I used to be, maybe 10 years ago, I used to think...
You had hope.
I don't think I ever had hope, Mike. I mean, that was beaten out of me in school, I think. But I used to think, really, I used to read like the press, and I used to think, well, the Democrats are obviously the same party, and the Republicans are all idiots. And something changed. I became a journalist. I started looking to primary sources, and I just started seeing things that didn't add up. And I came to a conclusion that basically they're all shit, and that the problem is that, I think the real problem, if we're talking, I want to transition here to what I actually wanted to talk about this show, but it's been going on way long anyway. But, a bit of the future and looking out into Biden's presidency. Yeah, I think that if you want to ask me what's the problem with the American democracy, I would say the problem is that it's a two-party system. The system is set up in a way that I don't see it happening that another party will crop up, and there's not enough balance. And if you have two parties, and I see this happening in Germany, it's actually going the other way, but it was in Germany. It was a while like that, in the 90s, whatever. If you strictly have two parties, this it just encourages this partisanship, because as soon as you have two teams, it's like pick the team, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as you have three teams, it's more of an equal fight. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm trying to say here, right? But it's more of an option. This two-party system encourages people to think in these simplistic terms. Right?
Yeah, and politics as a sport.
Yeah, pick a team, red, blue. The blue are the guys who want to save the planet. The red people are the hillbillies with their coal rolling trucks, right? And I just, like, I talk to a lot of people, or I try to, and I talk to a lot of people from the US, and there's people from, who are probably voting Republican. There's people who are probably voting Democrat. There's people from red states, people from blue states, and they're all different, and they all have good points. There are certain valid points that Trump addressed. I'm not saying he addressed them well, but that he, like, my whole point here is that Trump addressed a certain need in the American population. And some of that is quite carnal and not something we want. I mean, we talked about the anti-immigration thing, right? That's not something I support. But that is something that is a certain amount of Americans feel, and that you can make political capital out of. And that's something that must be addressed. And the way to address it is not for the other side going, this is all complete bullshit. The guy's an big orange balloon, and you guys are all hillbillies, and we're not talking about this. Right? You need to address this. That's what I say in Germany. You can't just go the AfD's bullshit, and if they say, there's no scientific evidence that the COVID measures work, you can't just go, well, that's a conspiracy theory, and everybody voting for them is idiotic. They have a point. It might not be completely valid, but they're coming from a place, at the very worst, even if their scientific explanation, whatever pseudo-scientific thing is bullshit, they're coming from a place that lots of other people agree with them. And you need to address that. You can't just go, they're all Nazis. I mean, you can, but that's what I feel ruins the whole situation.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, it's similar in the UK as well, with the Conservative and Labour sort of set up there, the two-party system. It's exactly the same fracture points at the moment, and it's funny. There's somebody in the chat here saying that it's interesting to hear the European view on American problems, and of course we have to put in the caveat that we're just two two white dudes from Europe talking about the US, and obviously it's
actually I'm Asian. This is just an elaborate deep fake you're watching.
Oh, yeah, you're an elaborate deep fake. Yeah. No, but
yes, and I want to point out at this point, I on the other hand value the US view, and I want you to, if you're listening to this, and you have a viewpoint, go to privatecitizen.press and go to contact and tell me about it. If you think this is bullshit, or if you're feeling different or whatever, tell us about it, because I value that.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned before as well that obviously we care about this because for better or for worse, America is still the superpower in the world, right? I mean, whatever America does has repercussions for a lot of other countries in the world, and well, or at least that's why I'm interested, and I find it really stimulating to have these podcasts with Fab, because you have to take an interest, I think, and that's what I mean. That I watch the inaugurations and I read the articles and we spar about this because it's important.
It's important to us.
Go ahead, Fab.
I just wanted to say, Funky Duck said, if you have many parties, you get more flexible with your views. Here, if you're anti-abortion, I think he's also from the US. Here, if you're anti-abortion, you're also pro-military. If you support the welfare system, you're also pro-censorship. Right? That encapsulates what I was saying. Just want to say that.
But yes, the future and exactly what you just said now is a problem for the Republican Party, right? Because in the wake of what has just happened over the last few weeks, it does seem like it was one of the drivers to finally have somebody who has been.
You're playing with your wire again. Sorry.
Well, yeah. Sorry. Well, what I'm doing right now is I'm actually getting a Connemara whiskey out of my drinks cabinet.
A bastard!
Sorry that I had to
caught you.
Disclose that.
No, I'm living vicariously through you. It's all good.
I'm moving about here because I think I need a whiskey now. This is the whiskey hour where.
Can we hear the?
Oh, that's too late, Fab. I'm already sitting down here. I think I'm gonna have it.
You're already.
So sorry about that, guys.
No, it's good.
Yeah. So.
Yes, you were saying it's a problem for the.
As we said earlier, everybody's now coming out of the woodwork because they're not quotes unquote scared of Trump anymore, but. Trump will be in the orbit of the Republican Party and will be the kingmaker for a long time to come yet. I have no doubts about that. But I think he has he has ruined his chances of maybe having a direct shot at a re-election in the next term, but there'll be others waiting in the wings to ride on his bow wave. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But you had people like Mitch McConnell and Mike Pence sort of in the last couple of weeks clearly beginning to distance themselves from Trump. And
Yep, they're good politicians. They know how it works.
There will be a reckoning, I think, somewhere in the Republican Party where they have to consider, do they want to do whatever Trump light, Trump version 2.0 or whatever, or do they want to try and do a polished candidate that is maybe not as extreme, and whatever choice they make might not please whatever part of the party that swings to one or the other side, right? And you might get a fracture point there. It's hard to predict, but I mean you have the whole sort of, like, this is dragging a lot of stuff with them, as there was somebody that mentioned the southern states, right? And the whole succession from the federal union is coming up again now. I mean, there's people seriously going, this is the time now to succeed from the federal union.
There's Bavarians who have been saying that for 50 years in Germany.
Yeah, so there's that kind of stuff going on, right? And in most likelihood, it's not going to happen.
We have a saying, es wird nicht so heiß gegessen, wie es gekocht wird. Things are not cooked as hot as they're eaten.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So...
no, things are not eaten as hot as they're cooked. Sorry.
Yeah, so there might be a lot of noise and rancor at this point, but a little bit later they'll close ranks and it'll all be back to normal. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I just think it's that's not going to happen. It's not realistic.
No, and as I said, I don't think so either. But that's the state we're in, right? That there's a lot of people waiting there to kind of seize their moment now. Once Trump is now sort of moving away from the spotlight, right? But they still need him to kind of give his blessing to the next candidate if that's what he chooses, or he might put his daughter in there. Like Ivanka is obviously being groomed for some kind of role, there's talk about her being a senator, and then
maybe he's just gonna pout and create a media empire.
Yeah, that could
with
be
his brand.
Yeah.
See, I'm looking more at Biden. I'm thinking, so my focus is on the Democrats and on Biden, who said in his inauguration speech that he wants to be a president for all Americans. And that he thinks that, dissent in a legal way is healthy and that is very American, that should happen. And, I don't know if I've seen parts of his inauguration, and I've decided for myself, you need to be fair here, give him the benefit of the doubt. He hasn't done anything as president. So I kind of doubt that that's going to happen. I laid down in the newsletter that you referenced, that's also linked in the show notes in the last episode, 51. I think, otherwise I can link it here. What I think, right? What Biden's going to do, that there's going to be a lot more censorship and all this kind of stuff. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I have extreme... I do not believe that he can be a president for all Americans. All this talk of unification, there was a lot of, I don't know how often he said unity or union or unification in his speech. So he's obviously trying to push that front and center. I don't think that is going to happen because I don't see, I neither see that from his party. There are Democrats who are, in high-ranking office who are saying, basically we can never forgive the people that voted for Trump. We have to remember the people that worked with Trump and all of that. I don't like to do that, to unify that. He would need to admit what I said previously, that Trump struck a nerve with some Americans, that some of the things Trump did were where some people thought that was in the interest of them, that he actually catered to people wanting these things, and he'd have to admit that, and he had to a certain extent embrace those people to get them into the fold, to get them to at least accept him, right? And not going on for 4 years how the election was rigged. And I don't know. Did you see that happening? I don't see these divides getting better, to be honest.
Yeah, so I think on the economy, which is the golden standard to maintain some kind of popularity, right? That is where if he wants to stay in office, I think that's the one he has to hit, and it's invariably tied together with his coronavirus response, because as everywhere else, the whole sort of lockdown and the bill is going to come in at some point.
Oh yeah, it's
and the thing that, as far as I understand it, he wants to raise the minimum wage, right? Which is called, of course, like a youth thing that that appeals to people in sort of their first jobs, or and interestingly enough, I don't think he's gonna go. I completely disagree with the China situation. I don't think he's gonna like completely reverse that. As far as I can see, the noises he's made is that he still wants to challenge China on trade.
That would be interesting.
But it's a bit vague on what he means when he says that he's gonna what was he said he's gonna do an international coalition or something like that with other democracies.
Well, I mean, he could do a coalition with the EU. I mean, we've been fucked by China as much as the US.
Yeah.
Economically, I mean, I live next to it now. I come from the city where I was born, where that huge Silk Road railway ends, right? Where all the goods come in directly.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, did you know the new Silk Road? The new Silk Road is a railway track that goes from Shenzhen, China, to like parts of Russia, all the stands basically, and terminates in Duisburg, Germany, which has the biggest river-based harbor in the world. The only bigger inland harbor is Chicago, I think, and there's where it's put right on boats and on trucks and everything. Of course, it creates lots of jobs there. It's probably part of the Belt and Road Initiative, but it's like a huge foothold economic foothold.
So train and sort of river transport, that also sounds environmentally pretty interesting.
Well, it's better than the fucking ships that have to go, if they want to get from Shenzhen to Hamburg Harbor.
Or transport by
but
plane,
what I mean is that that's an issue. That's an issue in the EU as well. To me, in the last year, I've come to understand that this is a much bigger issue than Brexit. Brexit is, I'm not saying Brexit's not interesting. It is interesting for the local, especially for you guys over there in Ireland, in people in the UK, for the local implications. But I think as far as Europe-wide economy is concerned, like our stance toward China is much more important.
Yeah. No, Brexit is done now. It's like the UK can sort of battle on their own and then figure it out. But I personally, I'm over it now. It's messing up a lot of stuff in Ireland.
We should have an episode on that, by the way. I want to do a last episode on that.
That would actually be interesting. Because now it's reality. There's no more political fighting and all that. It's implemented. It's done. And again, like we're talking now, you have to look to the future and just go, what do we want then? Because we spent years trying to fight it, right? The people who wanted it to be reversed, and it wasn't possible. And now you have to kind of go, okay, well, they got what they wanted, and we move on, so with Biden, it'll be interesting to see how he sort of comes back to, let's say the EU or to the European continent. And then obviously he's famously of Irish descent, so there's a bit of love there. He quotes James Joyce.
Isn't anybody in the US and Australia? They're either German or Irish.
Was it JFK that he was of Irish descent as well, wasn't it? And
probably.
But of course Trump, Scottish. We don't care about that. No, I don't. Is he
German?
That. I love.
Trump's pretty German.
Yeah, well, he had a Scottish grandmother.
Drumpf or whatever his name was before they changed it.
Yeah. So no, it's just interesting that he actually follows the whole UK Ireland. I wouldn't call it sort of the tensions between, but obviously it's a complicated and long sort of relationship between the UK and Ireland, and he understands it to a certain level, which is really interesting. So I'll follow that, especially and if we do a Brexit episode, there will be something related to that, where obviously the US is the signatory for the Good Friday Agreement with Northern Ireland, peace in Northern Ireland, which was one of the things that really scuppered the sort of easy Brexit deals for the UK government. But anyway, there's a lot of this green energy stuff as well, which will be interesting, I think, with Biden and.
Well,
I think
Well, I think his problem before that is, as you said, it's going to be the economy, and I don't think he has a way out of that, because I think on the so this is my personal view on the whole coronavirus issue. He's on the wrong side. He's on the side of the I don't know, what do you call it, the woke people. The people who basically think that if we wear masks and we behave right, it's gonna go away, right? And as you heard in earlier comments of me, I don't believe that. I think it's gonna behave like any other respiratory disease in the history of humankind. I believe the epidemiologists who a year ago said the only thing with something like this is you have to let it run through the population, and it'll be there for the next 3-4 years. And what are we gonna do now? There's gonna be a political reckoning, I think, for people like Biden, not for Merkel, because apparently she's stepping down this year. She's not gonna stand for re-election. But for the people who support these lockdown policies, they will have a reckoning with the general population when this is the second, third year we're doing this, and it's not helping, and the people are still dying, because that's what diseases do, and our economy is fucked everywhere. There's going to be a reckoning, and that, I think he's going to be on the wrong side of that. I think that's going to be, I don't think it's going to be end his presidency or anything like that. I think it's just going to be a problem. I think economy is going to be a problem for him, because how will he magically revive the economy without having these lockdowns?
Yeah, so there's some kind of sort of infrastructure stuff I think he's pledging to do. Like, what was I read? $400 billion, I think it was, that he's pledging to buy American, basically, or build American. Which
build
even
back
for the
better.
US is, yeah.
Or as No Agenda says, build back better for someone else.
So there's yet another cash injection coming there, which will stimulate the economy, but again, I just wonder if it's like
I think it's the problem is it's going to stimulate like certain parts of the economy, right? Amazon's going to do well. It's just, I mean, what we're basically doing right now is, it's not like we completely shut the economy down, but we're like screwing small businesses. Like, which could be some people are not against that. Amazon's going to be great. All the big retailers, they're still open. They're not doing as good as they used to be, but they're surviving. but like people are going to be fed up with this. I still believe that. At some point, people are gonna.
So you don't think the vaccine efforts by next autumn, winter
Definitely
will
not by
have
next
some kind
autumn.
of?
I mean, definitely not by next autumn. I don't.
But even an effect, sort of a lower transmission rates,
it'll. I think
less risky
see.
populations.
I think we can use that to protect vulnerable parts of the population. I don't believe it will. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I'm not, I haven't studied medicine. I don't know anything about this. I'm just a guy, right? We established that. But I know lots of biologists and I read all of this stuff. So I think it's not gonna get the transmission rate down. Really noticeably. I mean, this is based on, if you read the official documentation, and I've read it for like 3 of the vaccines now, they say in there explicitly they don't know if you're being,
if you will transmit or not.
Yes, if you're immunized with that and you get reinfected, you won't get sick, but they don't know if you're still transmitting. And there's that, I mean, that's a bad pet peeve of mine, because we've been doing this for a year and there's no data on this, right? I don't know what the scientists who are supposed to research this kind of stuff are doing. In Germany, they're doing podcasts. They're certainly not doing this research. Maybe it's just hard. Maybe you just can't tell. It could be. I mean, science is hard. But I don't see that happening. And yes, you can protect vulnerable populations, but I have, like, if you look into the history of this, there is, contrary to what many people believe, there is no disease we have completely eradicated with vaccines. We've thought it for a while, but they all pop back up. Like the measles pop back up. The smallpox pop back up. Like we had a case of the Black Plague last year, somewhere in Mongolia. Although I don't think, I'm not sure if there's actually a vaccination for that. But, these things, they pop back up. They come back up. We can probably, with this effort, especially the US has, the US has completely outdone us with this Operation Warp Speed. That's pretty amazing. Probably maybe next year. But it's all like in the air. Like, is it going to mutate? Or, it has mutated. We're all afraid of the mutation. We don't know what they do. But, are people, is that vaccination still working with that mutation? If that happens, then all bets are off. Yeah. Then it's the flu. Then we're fucked for the next 20 years. Then they basically can guess every year what vaccine they're going to give people. And you have to do the whole thing every year all over again.
I kind of think it will be a bit like that, because it is basically, once you get to a certain age, they do strongly recommend that you get a flu shot, right?
Sure.
And in a way, that's probably where we're going to be with this, because
it's just sometimes it doesn't work. Like last year, it's not like it doesn't work, but like last year. So basically, the year before that, I think 2019. What they do is they basically try to guess, based on what infections they see in the wild, they try to guess what the big wave is going to be, like what strain, right? And sometimes they pick the wrong strain. And then the vaccine is the wrong vaccine for the first 8 months or whatever. And then you can basically forget it. So I don't think it's like, I seriously think the problem we're having here is people just seeing things to cut and dry. They think, I wear a mask, I distance myself, I'm going to be safe. Right? They think I'm going to take the vaccine. I'm going to be good. It's not that kind of, it's a disease. You can't control it completely.
Yeah. But and as you say, over time we will get used to it, right? Because we've gotten used to the flu. And as you say, we don't really think about the thousands who die every winter because of the flu, because it's just a fact of life.
Yeah, and I looked this up.
Will be a fact of life at some point, but
in
at
Germany,
this point, it's
last year we didn't have, like, if you look at the deaths over months, right, from like 2014 to 2020, you can't tell that 2020 was different. The only year you can tell is 2016, 17 when that was that huge flu wave. You can actually see it break out. And yes, I understand that's because we did lockdowns, and there probably excess deaths to COVID that were like absorbed by not having other deaths, right? Some of this was like the flu was basically non-existent so far this year. It's probably going to come in February. That's usually when it really starts. But it's, there's all these factors, but there wasn't any excess deaths there. Like if you look at on a societal basis. And if you read what's in the press, you have a totally different picture.
I
mean, yes, there are.
It's not a COVID episode here, so I don't want to get into too much. But I'd like to see. So what you're saying is, when we compare to other years, if there had not been COVID, we would have had the same.
No. What I'm saying is, if you look at Germany and you look at how many people died in 2020 compared to 2019, it wasn't significantly more. Like it's within the statistical margin of error.
Right. Okay, Germany. Okay. Well, in other countries, it is definitely not like that.
I don't know. I would like to see the numbers. Like in America, for example, you can't really tell because they don't have a system that works like
the UK fab. The UK is I personally think it's a scandal. It is an absolute scandal in the UK.
I can tell you why there's a scandal in Germany as well, but it's not because of the people dying. And I realize we have, like yesterday, we had 1,500 people a day dying from COVID. But the people who are writing about this, what they don't realize is that we have 2,000 people every day dying from cardiovascular disease. Every day. 2,000 people.
I know you say that, and this is what comes back to what my point of view is. At a certain point as society, we accept a certain rate of death, and you can debate why we do that. But my personal opinion is that COVID is a new player on the scene if you want to talk death, right? It is a new disease, so it adds a layer of death on top of all the other stuff, right?
No, it doesn't really, because it's completely like, if it's completely displaced other what's the word? Respiratory diseases. It's completely displaced other reasons that people, like the year before, would have died in hospital of what people then call pneumonia, right? Pneumococcus, I don't know what those bacteria. The flu.
And I know you're saying that in Germany you can't see the difference, right?
But why would it be different in another country?
No, but it is Fab, and
I don't believe that. I don't see any
like go in, look at all the reporting on the UK, right? The excess deaths are off the chart.
They say that in Germany too, but they don't know what excess death is. Not just because the BBC says, look at the sources, look at the numbers. Show me the raw numbers. Look at the raw numbers. Don't look at the articles they're writing. In Germany, they wrote the same articles all year. Excess deaths are through the roof.
But Fab, if it's the Office for National Statistics,
right? If it's their raw numbers, yes. Then
would you not want to believe it?
No, I would like to look at the numbers, and if that's what the numbers say, I will believe that. Yes.
Yeah, please go into the Office for National Statistics, because they have it there and it's very, very clearly.
I would like to know why that is different, because there really is I would like to know what that reason is. Like, people say this and they're like, "Oh, Germany did something better." Bullshit. What can you do better? Like the people that are dying in old care homes. The same in the UK, the same in Germany, the same in the US. Right? We're talking about I just have the German numbers because I just looked this up this week for something I was writing. In Germany, I think, what's it like 96% of everybody who's dying from COVID is 70 or older. Right? 96%, but that's
again,
about that's about
figures, the
60%.
in Ireland or the UK are a bit different, right? You do have a swing towards younger ages, and it's not just care homes. I know, yes, as long as we've been in this pandemic, they account for a majority, and if you are vulnerable and so on. But again, there is another layer of death going on apart from what we're used to, and it has been shown quite clearly from official statistical sources, and even in the UK they're trying to play it down. Like,
how has it been shown? How can you even compare it? We had no other respiratory disease in the history of mankind that was even actively tested for. You cannot compare it. 2 years ago, if somebody died in a hospital of their lung, of pneumonia, the cause of death and the statistical thing they put on the papers of death was pneumonia. Today, it's COVID, right? COVID is a disease. Pneumonia is technically a symptom. They don't test what the pneumonia caused. They didn't have any numbers on the flu. The numbers on the flu that Germany has are completely, basically extrapolated. There's 60, there's this conglomeration of 60 throat, nose, ear, whatever the doctors are called, and hospitals that are basically asking their patients, or they have this thing where they check if somebody comes in the winter month with a respiratory disease. They do tests, whatever that disease was 60 places in Germany, and then they extrapolate that statistically. With COVID, every fucking body is tested multiple times. You can't compare these numbers. You can't. We never done this.
But the part I don't understand is that if you know what the average death rate is for your population, and there's no other causes that you can attribute it to, and you look at 5 to 10 years worth of data in a stable society, and then all of a sudden you get to last year, and it goes out of scale, even with statistical variation accounted. I know you, and please don't unleash another rant at me, but I'm just trying to understand if you have a good idea of what statistically within a certain variance you will have over 5 to 10 years in the population, and then you have 1 year that just goes out of the what can account for natural variation in a stable society. Why does that not tell you something?
You can do that, but I haven't looked at the Irish numbers. I have looked at the German numbers, and that is not happening in Germany. It is not. It is even age group. It's the same in all age groups. So it's not. You can't even say in Germany that in 2020 the 70 plus age group, or actually they looked at the thing I looked at was at 97 or older. That age group didn't have more deaths than it had in 2019. Accounting for statistical variance, right? I think it was 2% more, which was something like that. So basically, what is happening?
Two seconds, okay. Rep, 2 seconds. The Office for National Statistics in the UK say that in England and Wales, 2020 was the deadliest year for a century, right? The deadliest year for a century.
By what? By what margin?
Okay, well.
The 2% more than, what are we talking? Does that include World War II? Is this just... I believe you that they're saying this. This might be even be right. I'm talking about the numbers I'm seeing.
Sorry, I'm just reading it. Sorry, 2 seconds. So excess death, the number of fatalities above the 5-year average, rose to almost 90,000 across the UK in 2020, the highest on record since the Second World War.
Okay, what's that? 90,000?
91,000
more
excess deaths.
Or 91,000 all of them. Yeah, but the question is what is
above the number? Above whatever the number is.
First of all, what is the number? What do they classify as excess death?
Right. So 608,000 deaths were recorded in
Okay.
a calendar year with
So
81, blah, blah,
okay, so
blah.
it's 90,000 more. That is significantly more.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying, that's why I'm saying that it's a scandal in the
Well,
UK, because it's quite clear that whatever it is the UK authorities wanted to do about it, they've not acknowledged that actually,
yeah.
they do not want to acknowledge this, that they could have done other
But
things.
what I'm
So,
saying is people in Germany said the same thing with excess deaths. And if you look into it, you realize that they're just counting COVID as an excess death. And if somebody like the year before was over 80 and died with pneumonia, that wasn't an excess death. That was just natural causes. So my basic, and I'm gonna get to the scandal in a bit. So my basic point is, what I'm seeing, and there's always exceptions. I'm not saying young people die of this. There's thousands of young people dying of this. There's thousands of kids dying of it. But at a level in Germany, at a population of 80 million, when we're talking on a societal level, what you're seeing in general is old people, really old people, that die because, they have underlying health problems. They get COVID, they die. They would die of a cardiovascular disease, or maybe they would die of another virus. Maybe the underlying cause is a cardiovascular disease. The problem is that the statistical numbers are not comparable, because they're now saying somebody died of COVID, whereas before that, they would say, well, this person died of a cardiovascular disease, right? They might have gotten the flu, and then they died of cardiovascular disease. They didn't say this person died of a flu. Why didn't they say that? Because they didn't test them, right? When they got into the hospital, there's no test where you do a PCR. I mean, there is a PCR you can do, but they never did it, where they check, does this person have the flu virus? And then if they die, you can't put flu in the thing because you don't know if they were infected or not. And now they do that. Everybody who goes in the hospital must be tested, because they need, which makes sense. They need to figure out on what ward they're going to put them. Are they going to put them on the isolation ward? Makes sense. But that means that at the moment when they die, they were assumed they were COVID positive.
Yeah, but I think you're fixating on the COVID reporting, right? Because what I'm saying is that this Office for National Statistics have just let's say in Denmark we say konstateret, or how would I? They are just saying that this is the year in the century where most people have died.
No, they're saying excess death. That's not most people died.
No, actually, look at the graph there. I've just given you the link. So basically, the worst year ever in recorded history that they can put number on was in 1918 with the flu pandemic, right? So, so you can see on the graph there that there is a higher mortality rate because we are in a pandemic, right? And
well,
the reason why I call it a scandal is that you could have prevented that in some way or shape, right? If you had gone for a different solution, where I've followed this closely in the UK, that they were very, very reluctant to do any kind of lockdowns and any kind of measures against it, and then that's why they ended up with having the worst.
But that is not a scientific approach. That is an assumption. You don't know that. You do not know that. You have to prove that. If that was a scientific paper,
fair enough. But that's what I think. That's my opinion.
Right. That's what everybody thinks. And I'm just telling you, what if the lockdowns don't actually do anything?
Yeah.
Or just do a little bit. How much do they do? How much do they do? How much of a scandal is it? How much people would have died? So I'm saying personally, okay, now I'm going to tell you where I think the scandal is. I think the scandal is we're doing lockdowns, we're doing masks, we're doing all this shit. But what we didn't do in Germany, and which we had a year to do, is to prepare hospitals, to give them more ICU beds, to train people who care for people on ICU beds, and to get more doctors, to pay them better, right? All of this crap, we should have done that. That would have protected people. And, I know a lot of people. I was thinking about this today. I have sources in 7 or 8 hospitals that I regularly talk to, that several of them work in ICU units or have worked there this year or last year because of the special situation. And that's the scandal, right? Why don't hospitals have special ICU beds? Why don't we we are supposedly a social healthcare system. Why didn't they pour millions and billions into the healthcare system? Right? Why? I understand that it's really hard and it takes a long time to train an ICU nurse. But why didn't we start in April last year? Why didn't we start during the first lockdown? Why didn't we do that? Why didn't the government do anything there? That would have been a measure that would have made sense, and that could have helped. Because if you look into it, yes, people die of COVID and they die horribly, but they also die horribly in car accidents, and because their arteries burst. And doctors can't tell that happened, and then they just bleed out. Just talk to ICU doctors. There's horrible stories. And people are just now discovering that there are horrible stories on ICUs. But, what the actual rate they can actually save people is relatively high. That's one of the problems with COVID, is that if there's any problem, if I've asked to talk to doctors, and if they tell me there's any problem they're having right now, it's that if you have COVID and if it gets bad and if you go to an ICU, I think the average time somebody is like 2 weeks. Somebody's in the ICU, and that's why all the ICU beds are full. Because they're in there and they're battling for their life, and they can save a lot of these people. Normally, somebody goes to an ICU, they have an open heart operation, they go to the ICU, they make it and they get better and then they get transferred to a normal hospital bed, or they just die. Quite often they just die. So the problem why a lot of these beds are full is not because they have so many cases that everything's overflowing. The problem is that they're there long. And that the hospital system is not set out for this kind of thing. They're not prepared for somebody being in an ICU bed for 3 weeks. That's not what the system is designed to do. And why didn't we fucking prepare for this? We've had a year now. Why is nobody doing this? Because it fucking costs money, and hospitals in this country are a business and they need to make money. Right? And then people come, but the ICUs are at 80% capacity. That's how you run a hospital. Right? If they're at 50% capacity for a few months, the controlling people are the first to knock on your door and why the fuck is this? Why are we paying all these people and the beds are empty? There is actually hospitals I know of. I've actually talked to somebody. They contacted me. That work in a hospital where in the late summer last year, I can't really be more specific, otherwise people might figure out, they actually cut ICU beds. They got rid of ICU beds in that hospital. That's a fucking scandal.
And I to a long degree on that, I understand the business model, and I can see your point of view, and I think in a previous episode I talked about the compassionate society, and I think I got misunderstood a bit there, because that's exactly where I'm coming from. That for better or for worse, could we not work towards having flexibility and capacity in our society to meet these kind of waves of scenarios that happen? Because it won't be a steady sort of number of people. There will be these things happening. And of course, the pandemic now is extreme, and we don't want another one of those for another 100 years. But could we not build our society around having that kind of capacity to ramp up or scale down, scale up, and sort of focus on having healthy, happy citizens, and maybe scale less down on things that seem important now, but and I know people are going to shout at me now, but things like military and capitalist sort of ventures in stupid things that is consumer culture that we don't actually need, and now I sound like a raging socialist, but I'm just going is that not something that we could focus on rather than throwing money at other stuff, that's also a waste. At least if we had something that could care for people.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. But I can tell you why that's not happening. It's not happening because people don't concentrate on that, right? Because the press is doing a piss poor job at informing people, right? The press in Germany is going like in the last month there were stories like, oh no, this like stories about like a local hospital, and it was like breaking news that their ICU was full and they were sending people to another hospital. And I'm like, have you talked to people who work in a hospital? This regularly happens. You can watch this on like emergency room, right? A bus crashes on the highway, truck runs, and they have 40 people who need to go in the ICU. They all go into one hospital. That hospital says we're full. You have to go to the other one. That is like standard procedure.
Yeah.
And I mean, people in chat mentioned mentioned like this stuff where there's like, oh my God, in the morgue, the caskets are just piling up, right? But yes, because there's a lot of people dying, but it also has other reasons, right? If you look into that, you realize that some people, currently you can't have a funeral service, right? So you can actually go and go to a funeral home and tell them put that body on ice, right? I don't want to have a funeral right now in certain limits. It's probably different in different countries, but they're not set up to do that, and the hospitals are not set